Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Roach off of a screen set by Flip. How about a three? Big time! Cameron in a frenzy. 66-57, 4:28 to go.
14 seconds left. Evers on the penetration, little Euro layup, blocked by Kyron Lindsay. Don't foul, says Coach Roberts. That's it. Yes, it is. Texas Tech, 79-50.
You know, he's been a mentor for mine for, 10 years or so. So we've always had those conversations. It was towards the end of the season, as far as my season with the Steelers, that this kind of came up, and, it didn't really happen, tangibly until our season finished up. So I couldn't tell you necessarily time frame, but it happened more to the end of our season, and didn't really come out there because I didn't want that to be a distraction for what we had going at our place. We felt like we were in a good place. We were, pushing forward, and then, when it came time to be here, that's when it worked out.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Ravi Lulla here with my guy DB. What's going on, man?
Were you holding your breath? Could I make it 2 days in a row?
No, you were here before me today, so I rolled up and I was like, "Car's here, we're all good."
Same time, about every day.
Yeah,
I'm on the same schedule.
I vary a little bit depending on what kind of day I had.
Yeah. So are you what happens in your household in the mornings? The only variables are your dogs and insulin, right?
Yes, dogs and insulin. This
wifey's pretty consistent.
Well, yeah, she's asleep most of the time when I leave.
Oh, man, listen.
No, I'm not hating.
That's part of the American dream.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, I'm not hating. She
very few responsibilities before you even put your foot to the pedal of gas.
It's true.
That's amazing.
Well, so normally it's like how I slept, and because all it really is, if I'm being totally honest here, is how long does it take me to decide I'm actually getting out of the bed?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not a morning person.
Oh, okay. I am.
So yeah, and I'm not at all. I'm not at all.
I was at the high school. I bet you 3 or 4 mornings a week.
Yeah, that's early.
And I didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
But it's just good to get the day started. And some of these coaches will figure out that aren't in the buildings that need to be in the buildings. Obviously, the more you're in the building, the better.
Absolutely.
Because it takes such a long time to build relationships, right? And I think now more than fudge, man, maybe any time in my coaching career, the young people are the most different. They're the most needy.
They're the most different from when you were a young person
and coaching, right? Because I'm going into 23 years, right? So probably the most needy.
So from then to now,
it takes the most. You can't just, it's not just because I said so.
So let me expand on.
Do you know what I mean?
Let me expand on needy a little bit here, right? Because I think people hear that word and immediately think negative connotation.
Oh, that's fine.
And I don't know if you mean it negatively, positively, or neutral.
No, I sometimes I'm not responsible for people's interpretation unless they ask me a follow-up.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
You're good because you're sitting next to people in the car they're like going to hit me up and they're like, right. What'd you mean?
I'm asking the question on their behalf because I think I know what you mean, but I want to clarify for me and for them. The question I have, when you say needy, do you mean it's most necessary with them to have a relationship and a connection with you before they care what you say?
100%.
Because a lot of times people say needy and you think coddled, right?
Sure.
And sometimes that's it.
Yeah, but you know what? So one thing I really, really try to do is use the words that I mean.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I mean soft, I'm gonna say soft. If I want to say ding dong, I'm gonna say ding dong.
Yeah.
Right? Like so needy, it's a multitude of things.
It can be, yeah.
It's weird because I think the family dynamics are very, very different than I've ever seen before. And it's not just the not trivial, because I don't want to downplay 1 versus 2 parent or split homes or whatever. I mean, like, involvement. I mean where,
and like connectivity,
where I'm talking about parents being involved with what their young people are doing with us, not with each other.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Right.
So the parents are less involved in what you do,
more involved in what you
do.
You see them at youth games.
The kind of the helicopter parent.
100%.
Okay.
It's at an all-time high.
I could see that.
Right. And there's a ton of reasons why.
Sure.
It's, the internet, social media. I think it's a lot easier to communicate. Sometimes when you see people on social media or you see them out and about, there's this feeling that you're closer than you really are. There's so
you're saying things you normally wouldn't.
There's just fewer boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, parents will question coaches more than ever because we're in the age of inquiring minds want to know. I think, therefore I should say.
Yeah.
Like that's just where we're at. So, like, you have to really you have to get out ahead of it.
Well, and there's also, I think, this part of it where the internet, for all of its wonderful things, and to a certain degree, this is that's as somewhat positive, but there's been a de-emphasis on expertise. Because
at its core, I think the word is respect. Whether it's coaches respecting their profession and holding up their end of the deal, which can help garner trust and nip it in the bud before you get people that feel like you're not an expert. It's parents respecting what the coaches do. It's respecting boundaries. It's respecting and guarding your words. I think the core word it starts with for me is respect. And I tell people, and anybody that's known me, especially over the last 6-7 years, as I've really kind of dialed in on who and who I am, what I want to do, how I want to parent. And I mean this with the utmost love, right? Because I think this is a key. Go where you're celebrated and not tolerated.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're being tolerated, go find something else different to do.
I mean, we just saw that with Chip Kelly.
Listen,
right?
Go find something else different to do. Go where you're celebrated and not tolerated. And that goes for players, that goes for parents, that goes for coaches on coaching staffs across the board.
I mean, that goes for relationships too, right?
Well, listen, it's lock stock, baby.
Like, it's kind of a universal.
It's lock stock, and it's all inclusive.
Because, I mean, look what we just saw with Chip Kelly, right? Yeah, they kept him at UCLA this year. He very much was being tolerated, not celebrated. He goes to be the OC at Ohio State. I don't know if he's celebrated, but it's a much better
and I think you can feel it.
Yeah,
I think you can feel it. And
there's when you're being tolerated, there's a burden on you.
And sometimes, like, if you're going to be the receiver, you don't want to do the tolerating either.
No,
there were a handful of kids. Now, I can say this because I'm not using any names. A handful of kids that were going to be that have been on the move at the high school level. Obviously, our high school was in the discussion. Hey, we'd like to go to school blank.
XYZ, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if you're going to be hearing from us. Like, I heard you guys want to come here, but I don't think
maybe it's not a good fit.
Not a good fit. So, these people end up at other places and stuff like that, and that's cool because you ultimately want young people to flourish. You go do what you want to do, but freedom of choice doesn't mean freedom of consequences either.
Sure.
So it's like, the more you can set those boundaries, I just think the better off everybody will be.
Usually, freedom of choice means greater consequences.
Everybody.
It means accepting consequences.
Sure, it's like the transfer portal.
I mean, it's the great power, great responsibility feel, right?
It's the transfer portal, right?
Yeah.
That's why the transfer portal never bothered me.
Yeah.
It giveth and it taketh away. The very first thing Coach Rule said, where I wanted to air dap high five him, I didn't know him from a can of paint. Oh, man, I said, hey, listen, man, it empowers players.
Right.
You got to take what comes with it, though.
Yeah, I mean, you're making an adult decision at that point, right?
I think,
and
it does always mean a safe landing.
Yeah,
right.
You're going to have adult consequences.
Yeah,
right.
You can get paid, and you can be compensated for your services. People can also reserve the right to say, hey, you know what? You're not holding up your end of the deal.
Time to go.
This might not be for you.
You know,
I'm okay with that.
Right.
I really am.
You just don't get to have both sides of it, right?
Yeah,
you don't
because what it's going to teach people to do is to stop. Don't be so knee-jerkish, right?
Yeah.
Just think things through. I know this doesn't feel like a good spot right now. It's kind of not vibing. Give it some time.
I mean, it's the grass is always greener thing, right? Like people always assume that a different situation is better. Not always. A lot of people often assume a different situation is better, when a lot of times that's not the case. You just can't see the flaws in the other situation.
Yeah.
When you're in the nitty gritty, it's kind of like you can't see the forest through the trees.
100%.
And, speaking on this topic, because we were from Glenn Thomas yesterday.
Yeah.
Right?
He's the one that got me rolling.
Yeah.
On this whole, this whole little 8-minute thing right here.
So the thing that I kind of took away, the biggest thing I took away from his little press conference yesterday, it's not little, it's like 20 minutes long.
And we'll play some bites for you.
Yeah. Was the dynamic between him and Marcus Satterfield. Because you want to talk about being celebrated versus tolerated.
Are you going to use that now? You can.
Yeah, I'm stealing it. Just
all good in the neighborhood.
Adopting it.
It's a cool feeling. You know what I mean?
I used to say you don't want to be somewhere where people make
wanted.
You feel like you're hard to love.
Yeah,
that's what I used to say. Which is, I think, the same thing, right? But
doesn't sound as cool on a T-shirt.
Yeah, it's a little more like on the therapy couch than it is like a sports talk show.
Stop staring at me, Shane.
It's more this, and this.
Did he get a booster seat? I feel like I can see him through the window. I know you said I look much thinner, Shane, but I didn't get any taller.
Oh, you guys want to talk about him?
That's so I shouldn't be able to see you.
I haven't gotten any taller since like 8th grade. It's fine.
That's all right.
I was an early grower, and then it's just like we're done here.
Too much testosterone.
My dad's like 5'3". I'm lucky I got this tall.
Does my seat warmer count as a booster seat?
I think it might. Yeah, I think it boosts you up there. You got a couple extra inches there, bud.
Wowzer.
Anyway, Glenn Thomas was talking at a press conference yesterday, and the thing that I thought was the most interesting was him kind of describing his relationship with Coach Satterfield, because it would be really easy to be sat right now and feel like you're being tolerated, not celebrated, if you're listening to what's happening on the outside, right? Because I think that's how most fans, quote unquote, view Marcus Satterfield. They are tolerating him for another year.
Right. Yeah, good point. So this will be that line will be all inclusive for a long time.
Yeah, probably. Right?
Yeah, I get the sense where you could make the case for Coach Sat feeling like that.
Because I've heard
Shane, did I kick myself out?
I've heard people
You're back
clamoring not just for not just for Glenn Thomas, which I feel like we knew was happening well before it happened. Are you thinking about Glenn Close?
No, she's an actress.
Are you talking
Shane, isn't there a Glenn Thomas like the Eagles or the Doors? Or
Glenn Fry.
You thinking about Rob Thomas?
Who's he?
Matchbox 20?
I went to school with Rob Thomas. Track.
Yeah, and he doesn't sing smooth with Santana, though.
He was gifted. Anyway. He was. He and Steve Gort. Anyway. Okay.
But you kind of got the sense with people clamoring for Glenn Thomas, for people clamoring for the Dana Holgerson thing, for whatever, that Satterfield, at least externally, was being tolerated, not celebrated. But you go listen to Coach Rule. You listen to what Glenn Thomas said about their working relationship and how he views Sat. And it is kind of, it's a little unusual for me, because you have to really trust someone to be okay with that position. I know they'd worked together before, right? Obviously they had a similar setup at Temple, and I kind of just like, okay, that was a long time ago. They've each had a lot of different jobs since then. I'm wondering, okay, how is it'd be really easy if you're Marcus Satterfield to be looking over your shoulder a lot, right? To be being like, oh, is this guy going to start calling plays? How long do I have before this is a problem, right? But I think there's a really interesting part in here about the way that Glenn Thomas was talking about Marcus Satterfield. In fact, they've known each other for 20 years. Like, you have to trust somebody so much for that not to become dysfunctional in a hurry. And that's the thing I don't.
Off of such and such and him and such and him. And all I would tell our guys is upstairs or whatever. I'm like, doesn't matter. I don't care. I trust such and such. I trust such and such. As long as I feel like they have my best interests at heart, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. You want me to play off of, you want me to do like, just, I'm cool. Right. And I think because I do, if I can't work with you if I don't trust you, number one. But if I do, that's when I'm all in. Like, you could tell me anything, right? How many times have you not changed, but whether it's the layout of the show or something you want to talk about, or, over the weekend when we're talking about maybe lineup change or schedule change or whatever, do I give you any pushback? No. I say, nah, it's not a good idea. And it's not that it's not that you're mowing me down.
No.
I trust the judgment. Now, if I don't, I'd say something.
Yeah. And, right. And sometimes you'll be like, let me think about that.
Right. For coaches, like for Coach Martin to come get me in 12, right? He has to trust me, because there's stuff that comes with me being on your staff. Some of it good, some of it bad, right?
Yeah.
You gotta be pretty secure in who you are. For Coach Lamanji to come in to Westside. Now, he'd worked with me before, right? He asked me to take some roles.
Yeah.
That I was kind of like, ooh, I trust you, so we're rolling with it. Even though it may have been easy for me. And he said it clearly, especially in year one. He goes, hey, I want to do this, this, and this. I need you to do your thing, be who you are, and just trust me on this, okay? And I said, okay. Right. So,
and if that had come from someone else
or a different place,
if you had been in a different place in your life, in your
or him and my connection with him,
right? Or if that request was coming from someone else, that goes over differently.
So let me land the plane for you with Coach Rule and Coach Satterfield and Coach Thomas. Coach Rule said about Coach Thomas during his press conference after signing day. He said, it boils down to what? I just trust him. Okay. I'll go back to the story that I told kind of off to the side that I thought was an interesting disclaimer or a term of words of affirmation to describe Coach Satterfield. I was asking Coach Rule about Coach Sat. I just met these guys, and some of the other guys had been in the school, and Coach Rule went into detail about how much he trusted Coach Sat. Loyal to the soil, first call he made. I knew that Coach Rule had called Coach Sat after the Clemson win, and he knew right away, and he said didn't matter how much, he was ready to go. Like, they need each other. They don't like to spend too much time away from each other.
Yeah.
And I it's just interesting, right? So I went back and somehow came up with Coach Rule again. And again, he was talking about loyal to the soil, how he trusted him. He said he's done so many things. He's coached O-line. He's done quarterbacks. He's done wide receivers. He's played wide receiver.
Obviously tight ends.
Yeah. And he, but this was interesting. And I said this out loud, and I didn't know if it was a ringing endorsement. But sure enough, as last year played out, having to evolve and change the offense and have some conviction and not waver, because it'd have been easy to just be a leaf blowing in the wind as an OC last year, right? And I said, you can't get Nebraska's progress without getting some of Coach Satterfield's personality,
Mhm.
right? For all the things that we're upset with and struggling with, his resolve
Mhm.
is ringing through to this team, right? Remember I told you Rizak said you don't get this life without me in it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Right.
that story. So he said, Coach Sat, he said he's the type of coach where you could take play calling duties from him tomorrow,
Mhm.
and his job isn't going to change one bit.
Yeah.
And I just, at the time, because I don't know anything, I still don't.
Mhm.
It's February. I'm like, is that a good thing? Like that you're taking play calling responsibilities with, but it's now that I've watched this whole family dynamic,
Yeah.
he's just telling you he's riding for the brand.
Yeah. He trusts Coach Rule implicitly.
He is riding for I can't tell you
Yeah.
how important that is.
Yeah.
I am for the brand.
Well, and that sets the culture for the players too, because they see that.
Hey,
right?
So I had a crazy conversation with DJ over the holidays,
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna get one of the questions. He's like, he said, DB, let me tell you one of the things I'm struggling with. I see this, and this, and I'm thinking to myself, man,
Mhm.
is he for the brand or is he for himself?
Mhm.
And it's like, there it is again.
Yeah.
If you're for the brand,
It's the name on the front versus name on the back thing, right?
It
Like,
reveals
that's
itself, and we
essentially-
just talk about it so flippantly and
Mhm.
casually, and hey, man, like family's family,
Yeah.
and ultimately, that's the way that Nebraska has to build this bad boy to offset all the other crazy dynamics of NIL and the transfer portal and what other schools are doing and having a losing record, right? Like you have to hunker down and trust one another. What recruits does Coach Rule gravitate towards? The guys that commit to him before proof is in the pudding.
Yep.
It's all the.
He said that a bunch of times, right? The guys,
right?
The guys that bought into him before
the repetition
they
and
got
consistency
going.
of the message
Yeah.
is the same. And the coaches sound. What other head coach is picking up the phone to give a ringing endorsement of another guy for another job, and it could be at his expense?
Yeah.
Remember I told you the real magic happened in the 90s when you could cheer for other players and it may be at your own expense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to be able to say, go LP, go.
Yeah.
Right? T. Phrase has got to be able to say, hey, man, Brooke, man, hey, Hurrdat.
Yeah.
It's just it's the real magic happens when you can cheer for other people and it may be at your expense.
Brett, hold on real quick. We've only got about a minute left here before the hard out. So Brett, stay on the line for us. We will pick you up as soon as we come back. But I want to let you know, coming up on the show today at 8 a.m., we've got the one, the only Kevin Kugler, who does play-by-play for everything. 8:45, we've got Greg Anderson. He is a ad expert with Bailey Lauerman. He's their CEO. We want to talk about some of the Super Bowl ads. And then at 9, we're going to talk to our guy, Matt DeMarinis from the White and Blue Review, a favorite of both DB and mine.
Yeah.
We will talk to him about Creighton, their upcoming game against Georgetown tonight. And then, of course, we're going to have our first ever Hurrdat Hot Seat with my guy DB here. We'll see what we can do. That's the show coming up for today. Brett, hold on to the line there on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, and we will get right back to you here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, of course, on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
That's part of why this transition was so appealing for both sides. To be quite honest, Sat and I have been together have known each other for 20 plus years, and we've got a great relationship, and I have the utmost respect for him. He's a great football guy. He's got great insight, and it really worked well in 2015. And I respect him for for that transition that happened at that time. And I see it very similar this morning. I mean, or today, we even started some of those conversations as far as schematics and, some of the foundational stuff this morning. And we just kind of hit the ground running. It was very smooth. We talk kind of the same language. So I think that expedites that process as far as us getting ahead, from a schematic standpoint faster.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Shane Schillerberg producing for us. I'm Ravi Lulla, DB here with me. We are, Tuesday?
Yeah, going
Tuesday.
up
on a Tuesday. I went turned up Tuesday on the
you were turned
today. Yeah.
No disrespect, because I talked to you over the last 5 months quite a bit.
Yeah,
I didn't early see Shane.
that's right.
I missed Shane. I really did. I'm glad you're.
It was a nice little separation.
Yeah,
I mean,
I see you still have that
and then
terrible facial hair, but it's fine. Whatever. I looked at.
And then after a few months, I probably did miss you.
I looked at Micah last night.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, you have a little bit of hair on your lip.
Yeah.
He's like, you like that?
He's going a little mustache on
He
you.
would ask me if I could set the weight bench up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's that guy.
Yeah.
He's he'll sneak in curls in the morning and takes his
Okay.
little protein drinks.
Okay. See, I knew I liked that kid.
Yeah, he's different. But you heard it again with Coach T. And it's strange, isn't it? Because you know what you hate? It's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm hearing what I want to hear.
Okay.
Do you not hear, for all the humility and deferring, doesn't he come across as highly confident?
Oh yeah. There's a difference. There's a difference between being humble and not being confident. A lot of people think not being confident makes you humble, and that's not true. And a lot of people think you can't be humble and be confident. That's not true either, right? You can be both, but it's a very fine line to walk, right? Of not letting, and he talked about this with Sat, where he goes, ego is not part of the equation, right?
I just don't think you can be around Coach Rule.
I don't think you can stay around Coach Rule, because I think if you're not about that life, you get gone pretty quick.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think you would want to stick around. I mean, I've been in places in my life where like I wasn't, maybe in the best place, and I wasn't trying to do the whole like culture, everybody for everybody thing. And I didn't want to be there.
Just keeping it 100 out of the gates, right?
And I didn't want to be there very long.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned the like rooting for people
at your own expense.
There's not very many people in my life that I'm about that. Like that I'm like that with, right? It's a real small number, because Ravi likes him some Ravi, right? Like
I get it.
And so, the thing that you brought up that is something I've never understood. Never. Because I just can't imagine.
Okay, I'm
wrapping my mind around the dynamics of that. Because I know because you've told me some things about it, right? You mentioned the Tommy and Brooke thing.
Yeah.
I know that there were people in that locker room that wanted Brooke to start.
Right.
I know there were people in that locker room that wanted Tommy to start.
Right.
You've literally got two factions in the locker room, and it did not matter.
Nope.
That's the craziest thing in the world to me. Like, to have two very separate opinions. And because like anytime you hear about that, it's as part of a conversation of how a season got off the rails. It's like, this group kind of wanted to be with this guy. This other group kind of wanted it to be this guy, and they could never really come together, and the whole thing fell apart. So that's the only time you hear that conversation.
Those personal opinions are fine. That's just human nature. But you know what the non-negotiable is if you're going to be a part of that culture? You have to still maximize. That's
the part to me that is absolutely nuts. Like, that might be the rarest thing that you guys accomplished.
It's not magic if it's all you know.
It's not magic, but it is rare.
Maybe.
Like
I'm sure that there are several businesses, even families, because this is a family dynamic that I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm over at, Garden West JCC and, my sister is on her second grant from NASA.
Mhm.
I have.
Does she know my uncle?
She actually did get a couple grants from NASA. She's a genius. But anyway,
Well, my uncle works at NASA. That's what I was asking.
so I have to, and I know my parents may feel a certain way, and I may joke about her being the golden child or whatever. But I root for her. Yeah. Right. Or, but let's take my brother, right? Who may have wanted to I don't know if he ever did or not, but to be married or have the family dynamics, and then look at some other people in our household and be like, you know what, I want that, but I'm gonna root for him or her. Yeah. Like, so I'm talking about a component, like when you really want the best for somebody, that's usually relegated to family. But the closer you have, the closer the culture is to family, the better typically the business is run. And that even means the infighting, where you can't say anything about my brother. Only I can, because I'm his brother. Yeah. I can't be over at KB Building Services or Noddle Development or Mutual of Omaha or Lutheran Family Services or wherever else and let other people speak bad about the family outside the family, but internally, like, we can grow each other. That's just like Nebraska. Like, okay, but let me the fam. They may be thinking the same things that some of the fan bases are thinking. Yeah. Some parts of the fan base. Oh my God, I can't believe you called the same play on 3rd and 7 where you emptied the backfield and went gun.
I can't believe we went shotgun on 4th and short again.
Coach Rule isn't going to say that to you.
For sure. But listen.
He's going to have that conversation with. So those characteristics,
you handle it in-house.
Are still in-house.
So let me I think there's something here though, because I think it's rarer than you think it is in families too.
Maybe.
Like I think.
Oh, I'm sure it wrote. Yeah, you're probably
because
right.
Usually, let me go corporate standpoint on you here, right? Usually when people are talking about, we're a family, they use that to excuse toxic behavior.
Okay, so not like Sister Sledge or
no,
okay.
not we. Not that. They use a lot of times in corporate or non-family situations. They use the term, we're a family, to excuse their own toxic behavior, because it's like, we're a family. So I'm going to ask you to work 80 hours a week with no extra compensation, or I'm going to ask you to do X, Y, and Z. That's not part of your job description. Or I'm going to ask you to pick up the slack for somebody we fired because we don't feel like hiring somebody else. Right. Like they use we're a family. You gotta help out here, to excuse toxic behavior.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
God, this is from a sports standpoint. Just Friday night, I'm watching the hoops game with one of our assistant coaches, and he had to leave a little bit early because he's got 2 young girls and his wife's a nurse. So anyway, so he's leaving, and I'm like, hey, Coach Wright, later, whatever. So a couple minutes later, he sends me a tweet from a high school, another high school. So a competitor, in essence. Yeah. And he goes, do you think we should do this? And I'll show you the tweet. Here, I can just say, I don't care. Like, so the tweet was, hey, can we help you be developed? And they did like this tweet of all these players going to college. We have to play with or against them and kids, whatever. And I text him back. I go, I want to like and retweet that so bad, but it would look awkward coming from another school. Sure. Yeah. And he gives me kind of the question marks, and I'm like, I admire it. Yeah. Defend yourself, ride for the brand. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Right. Like I thought, I was like, hey man, that's the ultimate clapback. And I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the courage to openly like it, to endorse it, even though I'm like, yeah, man, like that's I would do that too.
Here's where it gets tricky, is when people often will ask you to ride for the brand when they're riding for themselves. That's where it gets toxic.
That's where you need to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
You do.
And I tell people all the time, man, stop seeking counsel from the less wise.
And that's where the trust comes in. The problem is a lot of people are not that trustworthy.
The guy at the club can't be asking the married guy how to operate at the club, and vice versa, right?
And vice versa is certainly true. We'll wrap up hour number 1 coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Well, I think something unique that's, from my background, if you will. I've been in Division II ball, and I've been in NFL probably half my career. So I've kind of seen both ends of the highest level of quarterback coach, and then coaching an 18-year-old freshman. So I think you got to find that line of where are they at and try to meet them at that line, and then raise the ceiling from there. So I think that has benefited me through my career, and that's what we're going to try to start to do, as we start this process moving forward. And that kind of starts this week, really, to be quite honest.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Want to remind you real quick, that's DB, I'm Ravi Lulla, your Omaha Mavericks men's basketball team trying to win themselves a conference title. Have a couple big games this week.
I
know you're a big Omaha guy.
You already know. I stopped the little dude Sunday.
Yeah.
This kid's probably 9 years old. He plays for this itty-bitty junior, I think it's Junior Mustangs, because they were in all blue. They were the little guys playing after us.
So the good ones, the Junior Mustangs.
Oh, stop. Hey, little dude had on a Omaha hat, like a stocking cap, and I'm team stocking cap number 1.
Yep.
It had the big O number 2, and on the back it had the hockey sticks crossed.
Nice.
I was like, hey man, you don't know me from Adam, but I love your gear. This little dude looked up at me like, stranger danger, stranger danger.
I was gonna say, you look at you and be like, I am not getting in your van.
Hey. Their gear. Listen, I'm all in on the Mavs.
The
man.
Mavs have South Dakota on the 15th. That's Thursday. They've got SDSU, who's leading the summit right now, on Saturday. Both are 7 p.m. tip-offs at Baxter Arena. Go to omavs.com to get your tickets. Go support the Mavericks and see what they're doing. Man, you got to go see Frankie Fiddler, if nothing else.
Hey,
that dude's a bucket. Like, go watch this team. Coach Crutch has them going. Like, they're trying to win the summit, trying to get their first ever NCAA tournament bid. Go out and support the squad. Humble
brag. You know me. Been in on Frankie Fiddler from day one.
Oh,
even in high school.
Yeah, no, I know.
And people didn't understand it. They're like, oh, this, that, and the other. I said, I don't care about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Off the dribble, whatever. I said, my favorite thing about Frankie Fiddler? Every time he steps on the court, he's trying to give it to you.
Yeah.
He is the ultimate competitor. And it wasn't always easy for him.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't rainbows and butterflies in his personal life. Mm-hmm. He's the younger brother of another good player in the same. Like, there's lots. And every time, I remember watching him and John Tonjes and there was Right Cell was part of that deal.
Mm-hmm.
Max Polk.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there were some guys with some swag that were playing in the Metro, and he just refused to take a back seat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, go ahead then, Frankie, you're my dude.
It kind of reminds me not to play nepotism here, but the first few times I saw Caleb play football live, I was like, oh, he's out to mess people up. Like, he's out there, like you said, he's out there to give it to people.
Yeah.
He's not out there just to play football. He's not out there to win. He's out there to give it to you.
He's a means.
He's a killer.
I don't worry about him.
No, like that dude, that's the thing that I didn't know about him,
because he doesn't talk.
Well, because he doesn't talk, and like seeing him live versus seeing him on TV is a different vibe.
I agree.
Like that was the biggest thing I learned about him this year. I was like, oh no, he's an assassin.
Yeah.
Like I can ride with that dude.
And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, Nebraska's putting themselves in position to make their postseason run.
Mm-hmm.
Creighton had arguably their most impressive win, especially on the road, which nobody appears to be able to do at a high level. Isn't it crazy?
It's wild.
I was going back and forth with my buddy. I was talking to Degenerate Aaron, and he's like, I can't remember how he asked me, but he said something about, Nebraska was playing on the road.
Oh gosh.
And I think it was Northwestern. Something like that. But anyway, he's like, man, what is going on? Can we finally get one on the road? And I'm like,
nah, probably not.
I'm like, look, buddy. No, I kind of, here, full disclosure, I felt decent about that game.
Yeah, that was the worst one. That might have been the worst one.
So you know what I didn't expect?
Yeah.
I didn't think they were going to stop doing the little, like the careless stuff.
Yeah.
It's casual with the basketball.
Man,
and
Northwestern
the bad
jumped
turnovers.
so many passing lanes in that game.
I thought it was boy from Memphis. Did you watch Memphis this weekend? And he had like 7 steals, and they were clean.
Yeah.
They were like just stepping into passing lanes. I'm like,
nope,
what
that's
is?
mine.
I'm like, what are you doing? But anyway,
a little pass fake goes a long way.
So we're, as they're setting themselves up, and the Summit is gettable this year.
It is. I don't think there's like SDSU isn't dominant.
No.
That's not one of those. That's not one of those teams that you're looking in the NCAA tournament and being like, oh man, I'm picking them in an upset in the first round.
So it's like, nobody's streak in the conference is greater than 2, whether it's wins or losses.
Mm-hmm.
So that just lets you know, man, any night out.
It's a well-balanced conference.
What's with the road thing, though?
I don't know.
Is it Animal, Hawk? What a rush. It's just hard to be road warriors.
Well, and I wonder, and maybe I'm grasping here because I'm just sort of thinking about this as we're talking.
Are you traumatized still about the Niners at Allegiant Stadium?
No, I mean, listen, that it doesn't matter where it happened. I'm traumatized because of Patrick Mahomes, not because of where they played the game.
By the way, when we spent our little 60 seconds yesterday talking about Romo, which had nothing to do with anything because it wasn't a Romo venting session, real time, I didn't know what he did. I didn't know he trampled over the ending of the game.
He does. Well, I didn't.
It was trending.
I didn't know
because I saw an article yesterday.
Yeah.
That he may be done, and I was like, "What happened?" Because even DeMarinis, who we'll talk to, he kind of like kept it moving because we're like, obviously, we're group texting, or we're group texting during the game.
Yeah.
He goes, "Gosh, he was fine for a half. I don't know what happened."
No, he fell apart in the second half.
But I didn't real time. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk to Kugler. I don't know. He won't speak bad about a peer probably, but we
can ask him about the proper dynamics of how that's supposed to play out.
So I was so disgusted that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even pay it any mind. Like real time.
Yeah.
I didn't. I wasn't like, ooh, he probably should have laid out for that and let the Chiefs fan. Like he probably robbed them of. Like I didn't think that real time.
Yeah.
But boy, our people were livid.
I didn't think about it at all because I was just...
You're mad too, right?
Yeah, I'm mad because of how the game ended.
Yeah.
And so I'm not listening to him at all.
Right.
Like I don't even remember. Like I'm sure you're right. And I remember him stepping on Nance the rest of the entire broadcast.
Hey, good morning, Ravi. Damon, welcome back.
Thank you. Brett with 2 T's.
Yeah.
What's up?
So, real quick, we'll be up there in Omaha first week of March.
Oh, nice.
Talk to West Side. So.
Is that right? Come on down.
Yeah, Parker, the main push is Parker said that he saw, congratulations, Micah got invited to that homegrown camp, and he said, Dad, if we lived in Omaha, I could get invited too.
Yeah, look, always looking for a quality quarterback.
Yeah. Hey, just to hype on him real quick, he did dunk it in a 7th grade basketball game.
Oh my goodness!
Jeez.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me know when you get in town.
But hey, I just was thinking, like, when you guys, my mind went this way on that coaching talk. Like, I feel like that's more of an external conversation on coaching, right? The criticism on Satterfield or rules trust, because of the culture we live in. Like, it's not okay anymore to say I'm good at something and I trust this dude to do his job because I'm secure with myself and I'm kind of good at what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to surround myself with good people, and that's on us plus we live in a culture now that's like, let's talk about it instead of just being about it. And it seems like with Coach Rule, Coach Satterfield, or really successful coaches at any level, they'd rather just say, hey, I trust this dude. I love him. He's one of us. And then we're just going to be quiet and go to work. And that's kind of a thing that we're missing. And that's on like us as fans, I think, more, or media, to keep clamoring and hammering coaches. I think that's why some coaches just leave.
Yeah.
Because it turns into a toxic environment, or kids, because it's like, dude, I'm putting the work in. This guy's better. I'm not getting my shot. And they're like, I don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm out. Like that's where I think the miss is when we look at like the why.
100%, man. And let me know when you get into town. Real quick on that with Coach Rule.
Yeah.
When he brought the whole group in to see CJ a couple weeks ago, the conversation had gone on for probably 15, 18 minutes, maybe even longer. And there was like this weird silence. And he said, there was a little bit of a segue. And he goes, hey, make no mistake. We're going to win at the highest level. I believe in this, and this, and this guy in the room. Make no mistake. We will win. I don't know. It's like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm pretty secure. I feel like I'm pretty good at what I do. Let's talk about why I think this is going to happen. And the whole dynamic of the conversation changed.
Coming up next, we've got Kevin Kugler, who does what he does at a pretty high level as well.
The best.
Here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Mayfield stands along the right hash in the shotgun. Gets the snap to the center, Hainsey. Throws over the middle, floats it high, and it's intercepted! Picked off by Derek Barnes! The former Purdue Boilermaker with the biggest interception of his life, sealing the deal for the Detroit Lions.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi, Lulla, DB here with me. Joining us on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Kevin Kugler, who does play-by-play for just about everything. Kevin, how are you this morning?
Ravi, I'm great. I have a few concerns.
Okay.
And mainly they center around you, and I'm kind of worried. The new guy that you brought on.
Yeah.
I'm
taking a big risk here.
I don't want to spread any rumors, but at one point I heard he killed someone. So I just want to make sure you're
sitting on that for 10 years
of the background that you're dealing with here with this individual. I mean, I don't know if it's true. I heard it on the radio one time, and it's stuck with me ever since. It's, and I've watched his meteoric rise, and I hear him in the booth, and I think, is Greg Sharp in trouble? Is Ravi in trouble? What do we have here? So I just it's my job to warn the people that are closest to him that at one point he apparently killed someone. So that's all I'm going to say.
Well, Kevin,
I can't. That's what we're on this morning. Okay.
I appreciate the heads up. I appreciate the concern. That's what I've got Shane here for.
Stop encouraging him.
Shane's here to protect me in case something goes down.
Shane's in tears over there.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've always said about Shane is if I am in trouble, I want Shane there in my corner to protect me. That's what I'm hoping for.
I mean, prototypical build of a bodyguard over there, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
He's sneaky fast. At his age, he's sneaky fast.
Still sitting on phone books over there.
I think wiry is the term we like to use.
Yeah, that's good.
K2, I know you're the consummate pro, right? Obviously, best in the best in the business at what you do. But how easy or hard is it? Like when you're listening to broadcasts, especially on big stages, because I usually don't, but I miss the whole last play of the game at the Super Bowl, right? And I was too busy worrying about like how'd you get open or did you take the ball first? I missed what happened with that exchange. But then I read social media yesterday, and it was still trending well into last night. Real time, as a guy that does what you do, were you thinking, was that cringy for you?
It wasn't cringy. I mean, look, everybody's style is different, and everybody's partnership in the booth is different. And so you're going to have Romo is an excitable individual, and Nance was ready. He was on the call, and Romo pounced a little quicker than I probably would have loved as a play-by-play guy. But those two like each other. They get along well. They love each other. They said so at the end of the broadcast. So, I mean, I am assuming that all is well. It was. Big crowd moments. You let the crowd talk. There are just things that I could say that wouldn't be as powerful in the moment as that. And it's not the same event, but we did Purdue Northwestern a couple of weeks ago at Mackey Arena, and the place is going crazy, and we didn't talk for 90 seconds. Now, it's not the Super Bowl with 120 million people watching.
Yeah.
It's a basketball game on a Wednesday night in the Big Ten Conference. But the concept is the same, the notion of there are a lot of cool things happening in this building right now. And I really think since COVID, where I did a season of games with nobody in any building, I really appreciated the crowd more. And I like the idea of if I'm sitting on my couch at home is something giving the moment a chance to be the moment. And that's, and I sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But I really do think in big moments, that's a cool thing. And if I'm a fan, I'm hooping and hollering on my couch or in my living room. I'm not really paying attention to what's being said on the broadcast. So it's almost better for you as a broadcaster to get your point across if the hooping and hollering has died down a little bit before you jump in and say what you're going to do. They weren't going to go right off the air. You never at the end of a play like that go, and that'll do it. Goodbye. You're going to have time to analyze it.
You know how consistent you are? I remember this is probably 07, maybe 08. And I'm picking your brain, and you said, general rule of thumb, if you don't have anything to enhance the broadcast, don't say it. And I was like, well, and then you said, give people a reason for the cutaway. Yeah. Like, then don't do it.
If you are someone now, radio, this is a little harder to do because if you just go, and Mahomes rolls out, throws, and then you just stop because the crowd's going nuts. That doesn't quite work because the guy in the car's going, what happened? Why are you not telling me? But on TV, jackpot, Chiefs win, they're in Vegas. And, then you can lay out a little bit more. It's all so subjective. And you saw that in the reviews and in the commentary. I really thought Tony Romo and Jim Nantz had a fine broadcast. My gosh, I can't even imagine a stage with 120 million people watching. In week 6 this year, we had a game with 26 million people watching, and it was the most watched game since the Super Bowl. And that was 6 times the amount of people watching that game. It's absurd. It's insane. It's the last communal event we have as a society. Everybody watches the Super Bowl, and it's really cool. But because of that large communal event, everybody's going to have an opinion.
I think 9 out of the top 11 or 8 out of the Super Bowl wasn't included. So it's 8 out of the last 10 most viewed things in North America. 8 of them were NFL related. Is that it? How did that happen?
The NFL is the biggest thing in the world. Well, in at least our world. Mm-hmm. I realize there's a larger world past North America, but it's the biggest thing that we have in the United States as a sports crazed society. And I'm sure it's gambling related. I'm sure there's gambling ties to it, but it is. Here's the thing. We are, and I've always believed this with football, which is what I think gives football staying power. We as a busy and now ADD type society have the attention span of a gnat. So we want something that I can focus on football one day. I can commit Sunday or Saturday, depending on what my flavor of football is. And then I don't have to think about it the rest of the week if I don't want to as a fan. I go about my week. I deal with my family. I deal with my wife, the cat, the dog, tracking down murderous sports talk hosts, anything you want to do. You spend your week doing that, and then you come back to football on a Sunday, and you're like, all right, I can spend 3 hours on this football game, and then I'm done again. You can commit as much time or as little time as you want to it. I love baseball, you know that, but baseball's 162 games. That's a novel. You've got to spend a lot of time on your novel. Basketball's an 82-game season in the NBA. That's a long time to commit, and half the time you're not sure who's actually playing on any given night. It's just there's a long season ahead, and football's something that you can spend one day a week on and be done with it.
Football's the TikTok video of the sports calendar, basically, is what you're saying.
It is. It's really a, hey, I'm going to watch football, and then I'm done. And it's the perfect thing for us as and look, even as you're watching the game, you can be watching TikTok because there's a burst of activity and then there's a lull. Oh, time for a video. Burst of activity, lull. I mean, it's a great sport anyway, but it's the perfect sport for what we've evolved in as a consuming public.
We're talking to Kevin Kugler, play-by-play voice of everything. Kevin, I will say it is a little bit easier for you because you've never really worked with a super excitable color commentator. Like Nick Ba's very reserved. So it's probably you haven't had the challenges that Jim Nantz has, right?
No, I mean it's easier now. Yeah, I mean I've worked with great former Husker kickers before. That's sometimes a challenge.
Wow.
Lunch is off. It's a wrap.
No, you know what? It's everybody's excitable in their own way, which is great. I work with Mark Sanchez 18 weeks out of the year, and Mark brings a youthful exuberance and energy to the booth that few match, in my opinion. And I love him, and I love him for it, and I love working with him. We spend a third of our year together. Mm-hmm. I mean, Damon can tell you. Imagine spending a third of your year with me. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be, that'd be painful. It would be a very painful. My wife can attest to that. She's like, "Oh, it's August. Please leave and go do football somewhere."
But
how I don't have to see you anymore.
How cool is it though? And I'm not like going to ask you to fawn over yourself, but generally speaking, we said this in like the second segment, like when you're good at what you do and like you're secure, it gives you versatility in terms of who you're working with. Like you can do Lofton or Malone or Sanchez, and you're the barometer, right? The compass. So you've got to kind of set the tenor. Do you embrace that? Like, is that fun? Is it like, it gives me another chance to test my skills? Because all those aforementioned are very different.
Oh yeah, look, the joy for me.
I mean, Bardo's not Hummel, like,
No, the joy for me is being able to adapt what I do to best serve the needs of my analysts, especially on the TV side. Radio is so much different because play-by-play on radio is a play-by-play person's game. So I have to tell you more because there's not a score bug. You don't have pictures. I have to explain more of what's happening from a nuts and bolts standpoint, not from a scheme standpoint. That's their job. But from a nuts and bolts standpoint, I got to tell you the score. I got to tell you where the ball is. So the versatility has to come on the TV side for me because, like you said, Stephen Bardo is not Robbie Hummel, is not Nick Baugh, is not Mark Sanchez, is not whoever.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've always wanted to be able to be is versatile, whether it's versatile in the ability to call a bunch of sports or versatile in my ability to work with whomever I'm in the chair with. And what can I do to make them better? Because if they're better, the whole broadcast is better. And that's really the goal for me. The goal is always to make sure that the audience is served. Did the audience get to see what they needed to see? Did they see the pictures? Did they, understand what happened in the game? Did the analysts get the chance to tell them why this or that was working? And if we walk away from it and that's happened, then it's a successful broadcast for me. That's the thing you always have to keep in mind is, this is all an ego play for all of us. We love, having the chance to be on these games, and it's a really cool thing. And I couldn't have imagined being able to do what I've been able to do when I was just starting out. It's all about the audience. You have to be able to, if they're not served by the broadcast, then it's not the broadcast you should have done.
Now, maybe tonight isn't a great example, but it is Dollar Beer Night, and I know Georgetown.
I will not have any beer. Thank you, Damon.
I know Georgetown limps in, right, with the lone Big East win, and so maybe being on the road isn't a thing. But you're in all these arenas. You're talking about being appreciative of the crowd since COVID, and maybe it's the portal, maybe it's the fact that we got accustomed to not playing in front of big crowds, but it has progressively gotten more difficult to win on the road. It is at an all-time low this year, especially in college basketball. You're there. You're feeling the environment. Do you see environments wear on players? Do you see it get away? Do you just think it's just simply more competitive?
Well, I do think there's much more of a level competition, especially in the college basketball world, than we've seen in years past. And I think the transfer portal has been a big reason why. You have teams that can get old quickly without actually having to go through the process of getting old. Nebraska got old quickly with a lot of new faces. They're an example of a team that obviously has not been able to win on the road, but they're an old team. And so they're able to get old. We see it with Purdue. They've gotten old the old-fashioned way. We see it with Northwestern. They have an old guard, which really helps anybody in the world of college basketball. The crowds are great. And the road thing is very weird this year because it is just a our mutual friend Joel and I joke about this all the time. Every time something happens, we'll text each other and say, hard to win on the road in the Big Ten, because it is. It's just incredibly hard to win on the road in the Big Ten. And it's a weird phenomenon. And it's really throughout college basketball this year. Top 10 teams going on the road against an unranked foe have a really low winning percentage.
It's in the 40s. I think it's in the 40s. Yeah. It's in the 40 percentile.
It's in the 40s, and in the last 5 years combined, it's been like 78%. So this year has been and I want to say it's an anomaly, but I don't know that it is, because I don't think we see dominant teams right now in college basketball, and I don't know that we're going to see dominant teams on the horizon. The transfer portal spreads talent. You know, you're sprinkling the talent throughout college basketball. So if you're that guy who waits behind Hunter Dickinson, for example, Terrace Reed at Michigan waited behind Hunter Dickinson to have a chance to play, and he's starting to develop the way big men used to develop, slow, steady steps climbing a ladder. But those guys don't stay now. You know, if you're waiting behind Hunter Dickinson after a freshman year, you're like, you know what, I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere else. And so that talent that would have developed at Michigan maybe develops at Duke, or maybe it develops at Nebraska or somewhere else. Now, Reed stayed, but there's a lot of examples of guys like him who don't stay anymore because there's just no reason to. Somebody's going to see you and go, hey, I'll give you $200,000 if you come here. Okay, great. I'm going to go there, make $200,000 and develop there. All right. That's the free market that we've established right now in college basketball. But I do think it has a tendency to level the playing field much more significantly than anything we've ever seen in college hoops.
Kevin, I'm curious what you think about Ed Cooley in Georgetown. I know one of my, I don't know if concerns, but thoughts about when he made that move was, okay, is he going to be able to upgrade his recruiting at a place like Georgetown and have access to greater talent, or is this just kind of the guy he wants? Obviously, in season one, things have not gone anywhere close to probably how he planned for. What do you think the future in terms of his trajectory at Georgetown holds is after seeing how much he struggled in his first year?
I do think there is an upward trajectory after this year. I really do. I think they are set financially. I think there's a ton of financial support behind Ed Cooley, not just in his salary, but in his ability to go get players. And so he's going to have the chance to get whoever he wants. Now, there's no guarantee that they're going to go there, but he's going to have a real fighting chance to draw in players. And that's step one in the current environment of college basketball. You've got to be able to draw players in with whatever NIL money needs to be there. And I'm convinced, talking to people around the Georgetown program, that money is there. That money is there, and it can be there to help Ed Cooley. I think Ed Cooley is a fantastic basketball coach. I think he's adaptable to the times. I think he's adapted his style for what you need to reach the current athlete, especially in this environment. I think he's incredibly smart. And I don't know too many people outside of the Providence area that don't like Ed Cooley. I mean, he's just an incredibly likable individual outside of Providence, Rhode Island. But I really think that is a recipe to get Georgetown to whatever level Georgetown can be. Now, I don't know what that level is anymore. That program bottomed out, and they may have waited a year or two too long to make the move with Patrick Ewing. But again, that's the challenge when you hire a legend, is what do you do with him when it doesn't go well? It was one of the reasons I never wanted the Cubs to hire Ryan Sandberg as their manager, because I never wanted to see Ryan Sandberg get fired. You know, one of your childhood heroes gets shown the door. And that's the case for a lot of Georgetown people. None of them wanted to see Patrick Ewing fail. I mean, you know, I think Nebraska fans can relate to this in a certain way about a guy coming home and not wanting him to fail and then ultimately seeing it fail. So there's a level you can get to with Georgetown. Is it where Coach Thompson had them as national title contenders? I don't know. It's a different Big East. It's a different college landscape. But I do think Ed Cooley can get them certainly better than they are right now.
Do you get a feel, because we're going to get into this conversation later, especially with regards to kind of like players of the year, and we talked briefly yesterday about conference strength. Can you get a feel when you're doing these broadcasts from top to bottom conference talent? I tried to make the case that maybe, I know most people have like the Big East, let's say 5th or 6th, right, in their ranking. But if you get rid of, you know, Georgetown and you got two bottom feeders, right, that pull the conference down. Or
correct, Georgetown and DePaul.
If you can you get a feel when you're watching broadcasts over overall conference strength?
Here's the challenging thing. Yes and no.
Okay.
For example, let's stack these two together. Let's stack the Big East against the Big Ten. Each conference has a team at the top that I think could win a national championship. I think Purdue fixed some of the deficiencies that they had last year that knocked them out as a 1 seed in the 16. They can hit the 3 now. They can hit outside shots. When Edey is post-trapped and doubled, they can get it outside and hit shots. They've got Lance Jones, who's a terrific defender, as well as a slasher and a scorer. So they've got a lot of those pieces that they didn't necessarily have when the recipe was found last year in the tournament to beat them as a 16 seed. So you stack those two. UConn, I think, is the best team in college basketball right now. Purdue is a very close second. You've got those two teams right at the top of the list. Then you look at the middles, the second and third teams in the league. Illinois versus, look at the Big East's top 2 or 3, Marquette, Creighton, whoever you think is that team that goes into the mix at the end of the season. Michigan State's in the middle, the big middles. Do you like a Providence versus a Michigan State? Do you like a Providence versus a Wisconsin? How do you stack the middles together? Because to me, that's where conference strength lies. And I realize we don't have equal numbers in these two conferences to go apples to apples.
Right.
But where do you take the middle of the Big Ten and stack it up against the middle of the Big East? If you've taken out the top 1 or 2 teams and said, all right, these 2 teams are great, these 2 teams are great, let's set them aside. What about the middle? I don't know that the Big Ten has the bottom that the Big East has, because Georgetown and DePaul lose to everybody in the Big Ten on a regular basis, just like they are in the Big East. They're losing to Ohio State. They're losing to Michigan, the 2 teams at the bottom, because those 2 teams have better talent.
What happened in Ann Arbor and Columbus? Like, are you not shocked? And I get it. Michigan was hurt early, but the Howard factor has worn really thin the last year and a half.
It's been a weird thing to watch. I think there's talent there, but the Doug McDaniel thing is just bizarre. I've never seen anything like a road academic suspension. It makes no sense to me at all. Andy Katz found out last week that basically Doug has 12 hours a week that he could do basketball, and he does those at home, and then he's on scout team when they prep for road games, and that's it. So when you take a team and you take their leading scorer and the guy who drives the bus and you pull him off and put somebody else in that position on the road, things like what we saw this past weekend in Lincoln happen. You just get annihilated because you're just a totally different team. Ohio State's a puzzler to me. There's talent there. It's
supposed to be a good job.
Yeah, and the problem with Ohio State is that fan base is fickle. They're not showing up right now. It is that, and look, Thad Matta had some national title contending teams there,
right?
And they came for those. But if they weren't in the picture for that, they didn't show up at the regular. We get spoiled around here with Nebraska and Creighton fans who show up every single time to watch their teams play. That's not the case in Columbus. That's not the case in Ann Arbor. Those are schools that really are trying to get people in the door, and they're not succeeding right now for basketball.
That's Kevin Kugler. He's the play-by-play voice for everything. You're on the Georgetown Creighton call tonight, right?
I am indeed. Georgetown Creighton tonight, but lunch first maybe with Damon Benning, although it sounds like that might be over.
10:40 shoot around, 10:30. You going to watch?
Yeah, we'll go to lunch after the first shoot, and then I'll go down to Creighton shoot, and then I'll put on a suit, and I'll do a game, and then I'll hop on a plane tomorrow, and I'll go do another game.
Wow. There you go.
See you soon, champ. Appreciate you.
Talk to you soon.
He's the man.
Coming up next, we got more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Well, this is kind of the first week, signing day was Wednesday. So, coach let us get out of here for a couple of days, kind of get our feet back on the ground. And this is kind of the start of us pushing forward from meetings, from schematic, creating that foundation, figuring out where our guys are at and where we need to build upon. So, we're literally starting page one in the playbook and what did we do last year? What worked? What guys we have coming back? What are they good at? And then how can we advance, moving forward?
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. DB here with me. I'm Ravi Lulla, and
You are looking live.
we are looking live. Well, if you're on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, you're looking live at us.
Who
doing
was
the
just
show.
making the case for Musburger to be an HOFer?
I think Nance was.
Was it Nance?
I think it was.
Yeah, it was Nance. Yeah,
because he's like he did more for the game than and growing the game.
Is he blackballed?
Musburger?
Yeah.
No, I think he took a deal with like a Vegas casino.
No, I understand that, but he's a slam dunk, right? Like, why else wouldn't he be in?
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, it might be because they don't like
Shane. That's your guy.
No, that was Severe's guy. But he should be a slam dunk. I mean, why? I mean, I totally agree, but he's not my guy.
I associate, and this is probably an age thing.
Ravi took my guy.
Who's your guy?
Because Musburger is the play-by-play guy for the Raiders, and the former Raider guy is the play-by-play guy for the 49ers.
In San Francisco. Yeah.
I always associate Musburger more with college football, but that's probably an age thing.
Yeah.
Like he's a very prominent college football voice for me, and I don't associate him as much with the NFL.
Yeah, so I'm just the opposite because of CBS Today, like with Irv Cross and Musburger, and Jimmy the Greek, and I almost referred to somebody's looks, which is I don't think you can say in 2024.
I don't think so.
Is Jimmy an HOFer? He's not, is he?
Jimmy the Greek?
Yeah. Didn't he have issues though?
He got in a little trouble.
I think Babe Ruth is the only known. No, Honus Wagner is like the only known racist that I know is like celebrated in the Hall of Fame.
No, Ty Cobb, very racist.
I don't remember what his issues.
Ty Cobb was aggressively racist.
But here's the thing,
it was a different time. Is
hot take. Hot take. Yes. 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 I think after the Civil Rights Bill was passed, you probably should understand time and place. I excuse the guys in the 18 and 19, early 1900s. Hot take.
I actually don't think that's a terribly hot take. Like it's still wrong,
right?
But I think you do have to take in the context.
Yeah, like
of the time.
I can understand it.
Like when I go watch movies from like the early to mid 2000s, they say some words in those movies that today it's like, hey, don't say that word. You will get canceled. You can't say it. It's not a nice word to say. But you go back and look at those.
Can you do that delivery again?
Hey, don't say those words. Jimmy. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, you knew at the time maybe it wasn't the nicest thing to say, but you didn't realize at the time how bad it was to say. Like, in 2004, we were saying some words that we shouldn't have said.
Hey, so Shane,
as a society,
who's fish that had this? I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. That had to sit down. Was it Camping? It was somebody that said that why the brothers aren't managers, and they were doing the sit down with Ted Koppel. Like
it's not Bud Hune, is it?
No. Oh wow, no.
That was the commissioner, right?
Yeah, at one point.
Okay,
but can those are those guys HOFers?
Bud Hune sounds like the name of a guy that would be racist. I don't know.
Do you remember who I'm talking to? It's super popular. And I'm drawing.
Just because you have the position doesn't mean you're an HOFer.
While you think of that, I want to tell you should go out to supernovas.com and get tickets for Sunday's match against the Orlando Valkyries. Omaha able to get a win last night, 3-1. They go back on the road Thursday to Vegas, and then they're back home here. Omaha, CHI Health Center, 5 p.m. on Sunday. There's no more football. Go watch professional volleyball here in Omaha, Nebraska. That's supernovas.com to get your tickets.
Do you know what a Valkyrie is?
Yeah, it's like the Viking warrior goddess ladies, right?
Specifically, it's one of Odin's 12 handmaidens.
I mostly just know
I love mythology.
I'm more into like Greek and Roman than I am Norse. But I well, I mean, you got the the Latin on the arm and stuff.
Mr. Smarty Pants over there.
But I know most of what I know about Norse mythology from Thor movies, if I'm being totally honest.
I know most.
So that
of
may
what
or
I
may
know
not be accurate.
From my brother.
Fair. Totally fair.
Huge mythology guy.
There we go.
Loved him some Thor.
Listen, Thor's he grew on me, although I didn't like the last one. The last one was bad. Love and Thunder, not a good movie.
I'm not sitting through a comedy.
But you liked it when he was on Earth playing video games, though?
Well,
like Endgame? Yeah, that was a good movie.
One of the things that I was doing while I was contemplating collecting unemployment. I'm kidding. I watched Luke Cage. And I didn't know. I actually kind of liked it.
Yeah.
But I didn't get into like the Daredevil, the Jessica Jones. Like I'm like 4 years late.
Some people like really ride for those Netflix like Marvel series.
I thought Echo was fantastic.
I haven't watched that one.
Yeah, she was, even though she whooped Daredevil, and that's my guy.
I was like, come on now.
I got a closet thing for Daredevil.
Well, hey,
like
that's
he's
okay.
one of my favorite superheroes.
I'm one of the only probably like 7 people in the world that don't hate the Ben Affleck movie.
Oh no, I don't either.
So we're 2 of the 7 people in the world.
Hey, full disclosure. Us and our 4 listeners.
Yeah.
Good to see Amazing Daniel with us now. I've rewatched that.
Oh yeah,
multiple times.
Yeah, and not just because I used to have a crush on Jennifer Gardner.
Overrated, but
so
I get
the
it.
Electra movie good?
I mean, I was in high school.
No, I know. I don't judge.
It's coming right off the A. Listen, I had a little crush on Jennifer Gardner. I was like, don't hate this movie.
Teach their own.
Don't hate this movie.
Yeah, that's a fantastic show.
Yeah, it's not. It's solid. I know people love the Daredevil.
I like
show.
Colin Farrell.
I do too. I thought Colin Farrell, and I love Michael Clark Duncan. Michael Clark Duncan's like one of my all-time favorites.
I think we should give Ravi props for saying the multi-name guy with his name in the proper order. I don't know how many times I've said Michael Duncan Clark. You remember those days, Shane?
I remember those days.
All right.
R.I.P. to our guy.
R.I.P. to the.
Pour one out for MCD.
Yeah, the better kingpin though is D'Onofrio. D'Onofrio.
There you go.
Leonardo.
Vincent.
Law and Order. Full Metal Jacket.
There we go.
No, I love him.
No, he's really good. He was in the Spider-Man movie as Kingpin.
I think he's one of the most underappreciated actors.
Really good actor.
He's pretty amazing, and he can fluctuate weight too, like nobody.
Oh, like crazy.
The little guy, be a big guy. And
isn't he the alien in the original Men in Black?
Shane? Yes, the Roach, the guy that turned into a Roach. Yeah.
He's like, oh, there's that better.
Yeah.
No,
exactly. Hey, so
you've been on that guy for a minute.
Yeah. 100%. Thank you, Shane. Good memory. That's why I love the fact you've known me a quarter of my life. Wait, almost half. 05.
It's been a minute.
Almost half. That's only 36. 16 years. I wish. No, I don't. Not going back to my 30s. Bad guy.
Right in the sweet spot for me.
So you got a lot of improving to do.
I hope so.
Level of surprise that the news came out so quickly about Tony White. After the weird
like 7 minutes after our
text
show
exchange.
Like 7 minutes after our show ended.
That was not the response I thought we were going to get when I reached out either.
I did not.
If you can't get up for this game, then you don't need to be here.
I know, Coach White, man, you're my hero.
Yeah, no, we're thrilled that Coach White, and we'll have to get to this more in Hurrdat Hot Seat. We only have about a minute left here, but no. So you mentioned it's kind of funny because you said, hey, the homecoming's not always what it's cracked up to be. And they went the homecoming direction.
I just felt like he felt rushed.
Probably. And maybe, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the situation. And I don't know if you had more conversation.
No, he didn't. He didn't expound.
So I don't know, like, if there was an offer or interest there and he needed more time and they wanted to move faster than that. Like, I don't know how it played out, right, between him and Deshaun Foster and apparently PJ Fleck and whatever. I think it's better for
when an athletic director uses words like elite all the time. Are you thinking, oh gosh, this has got Fleck written all over it?
To be fair,
I do, and people in Minneapolis were generally concerned, and I knew he was kind of fibbing when he said no one had reached out because I know a couple of head coaches, they have the same agent.
Yeah, well,
and I was like, I get it, the gamesmanship, but
yeah. To be fair with the elite thing, our very own head coach Matt Rule likes that term a lot as well.
Yeah.
That's not just a PJ Fleck thing. We just like Coach Rule better. We like PJ Fleck. We don't like the quarter zip with the tie under it. That's not the Nebraska vibe. Apparently,
he was good in person to us, so I don't have anything negative.
No, I actually think it's a perception more than a reality thing with Coach Fleck. Coming up next, though, we're going to talk some Super Bowl ads. Commercials, little underwhelming this year. We'll see what
100%.
Greg Anderson, CEO of Bailey Lauerman, has to say about it next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
And needs no introduction, my partner.
Sometimes it's really hard to be your friend.
You said you were going to support me.
Don't go away, my heart. Why you dunking me, girl? Why you dunking me?
Go Kid!
My heart.
How do you like them donuts? I'm so sorry.
You had to see it, but I forgive you. Lay us on the track.
Are we going to be on the album?
We talked about this.
Let's go. You're blinded by them pinstripes.
Wrap it up.
There goes Babe Ruth.
Tom, you can stay.
You remember when I told you I'd do anything for you? This is anything.
Chill. They're naming a drink after us.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. DB here with me. I'm Ravi, Lulla, and we're brought to you by the NDOT Highway Safety Office, reminding you that using your seatbelt saves lives and prevents injuries, but only if it's worn properly. Make it click. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Greg Anderson, CEO of Bailey Lauerman, to discuss some of the ads we heard during the Super Bowl or saw during the Super Bowl, like we just heard that Dunkin' Donuts ad. Greg, how are you this morning?
I'm fantastic. How are you all?
Oh, we're hanging in there. Good to hear from you.
Likewise. Thanks. Thanks for having me on the show.
Greg, I got to say, it seemed a little lackluster in the commercials this year in terms of really memorable ones. Obviously, that Dunkin' one sticks out, but kind of it just going back in your memory, was this kind of one of the more meh Super Bowl ad years?
It really was. And I think that sets out a bit of a cautionary tale for Super Bowl advertising going forward. And, you know, I think when you look at ads in the Super Bowl and the tone that they take, they are a direct reflection of what's happening in society, you know, and, you know, the Super Bowl is meant to be a platform for brands to make a big statement, right? You know, and you look back through the history of famous advertising, like Apple and their famous 1984 commercial, or, you know, some of the work that Nike has done. It's supposed to be like a reflection of things that are happening in society, and they're making this big statement, or they're trying to disrupt a category. But we really saw none of that this year. And I think it's because we're in a really combustible societal time right now, you know, and brands that have sort of stood out and made a statement, oftentimes in the last 12 or 24 months have gotten dinged, right? They've been boycotted and everything else. So I think the marketers this year tried to really play it safe. And in playing it safe, you know, they spent $7.5 million per 30 seconds to duck.
Greg, understated or overstated? Because I kind of got the reference and immediately I thought Bud Light, right? But it
Exactly.
seems like they've weathered the storm, whether it was the partnership with the UFC and Dana White, or the public the public affinity from Donald Trump. What was that exaggerated? We read the reported losses, but it seems like now they're back and it's still Bud Light, a very popular brand again. Did they rehab their image that quick, or was it overstated?
Well, I think that there is like an initial period of shock, right, where everyone's talking about it. It's going to have an immediate short-term impact. But if you look at Bud Light, you look at Target, you look at Disney, you know, all of these brands have been on various boycott lists. And I think over time, you know, people's sensibility takes over, and then they could just go back to, you know, their normal consumption patterns.
We're talking with Greg Anderson, CEO of Bailey Lauerman, talking about Super Bowl commercials. Greg, you know, I'm wondering, because the thing that I noticed theme-wise, and you mentioned this kind of in the state of the world, was it seems like there was a lot more commercials for causes as opposed to products. I guess, when did we start to see that shift? Because I remember it last year a little bit, but it was pretty prominent this year.
Yeah, you know, cause advertising is always going to be there in these big moments. There's obviously a massive audience, but I think, you know, cause brands are not immune from the same sort of fragility, I would say, you know, as any other, you know, product brand out there. Look at, you know, He Gets Us, right?
Yeah.
So you want to talk about how divided and tense culture is in the United States today. You know, here's advertising that is trying to remind people that tolerance isn't a bad thing. And it was one of the most talked about ads in the Super Bowl, but it also had one of the largest percentages of negative sentiment in how people were talking about it.
So, you do this for a living, so you're the perfect guy to ask. How, like, it's 2024, and things are there's a lot more diversity overall. Opinions, the way people look, the way people dress, working home from not home, households. Like, everything is less, quote unquote, traditional than, like, let's say it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. Why do you is it just that we have the ability to be more opinionated? Because why are we more particular than, like, let's say we were in the 70s, where there was a lot less, quote unquote, difference?
Right. Well, I think that political polarity, you know, unfortunately has taken over how people think and behave, you know, and it shapes a lot of how they express themselves on various social media platforms today.
Is this where you guys would excel, right? Because it's so temperamental and volatile. You almost have to choose carefully, but we saw the expenditures this year for the Super Bowl. Was this simply Vegas, the high ticket prices, it was an exciting time, the Super Bowl performance, Taylor Swift? Like, Was it just the cost of doing business, or is this just a sign of the degree of difficulty for businesses to get it right?
Yeah, there is a very high degree of difficulty to get it right. I mean, marketers are spending millions and millions of dollars, and the knock-on effect of that investment can be both massively positive or negative, for a brand. So you really have to thread the needle, which is why you saw a lot of brands this year go to safe, celebrity driven, narratives that got a few chuckles, and I think, again, no one wanted to touch the electrified third rail of anything, and unfortunately, and unfortunately they're everywhere, and so I think it was a year where marketers really tried to play it safe. But, going back to my original statement, I don't think you spend $7.5 million for 30 seconds and then, how many other million for your celebrity endorser to play it safe. And I think that marketers are going to really start to question whether or not in this current environment, Super Bowl as a platform makes sense if they're just going to be forced to play it safe.
Let me ask along those. God, this is fantastic. Actually, along those lines, do you think we're more or less swayed when it comes to advertisements? It seems like now more than ever, we have more resolve in our conviction. Like, it seems kind of like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Can you get me to change my mind
in 30
when
seconds?
I'm so staunch in what I believe in?
Yeah, yes and no. I don't know if it would be overnight, right? But incrementalism, we're trying to build awareness and we're trying to build meaning and specific attributes. But, if you're talking about millennial or Gen Z's audience, going back to that cause thing, so many younger consumers are not just making a decision based on a product, feature, or price. They're making a decision about what a brand stands for in the world and whether or not that brand aligns to their values of how they live their lives. And so that's where you see a lot of purpose-driven, brands and, campaigns built around certain values. They're trying to align with their audiences and those values.
Greg, great stuff there. We super appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll circle around next year and
100%
see what the conversation surrounding the ads are. Then we appreciate it, Greg.
Hey, thanks very much for having me on.
Thanks, Greg.
That's Greg Anderson, CEO of Bailey Lauerman.
I always wonder what the dynamics is, right? Where what's the breaking point? Because 98% of the time, we don't even watch commercials. The whole streaming platform and television viewing experience is built around being able to do away with commercials. We don't want to see it. It's a waste of time. It can't change the way we think.
Well,
why do you see this? Why do you think
our phones too, right? Because instead of watching a commercial, we bring up TikTok or we bring up Instagram or we bring up Twitter. Like a lot of times, this is what I do during games is commercial break. Oh, time for me to tweet out what I thought about what just happened or whatever, right? Yeah. Like as kind of what we do. So it is kind of the one time a year we even pay attention to advertisements in a real way.
It's got to start to, you'd think, if we're getting a pulse on how people actually think and the way society's going, wouldn't we see less commercials and not more?
I think you're going to see less of certain types of commercials. That's why I think you saw so many movie trailers during the Super Bowl, because they want to get that actually does provide bang for their buck, right? Because $7 million on a production budget of Dune, I think is $150 million, $200 million movie, right? $7 million in advertising is nothing. That's really good bang for your buck if you're an advertiser, because hey, you want to get this in front of as many eyeballs as possible, and all you're paying is for the time. You're not paying to actually produce the commercial, really. You just have to cut that thing up. I think that we're going to see more and more stuff like that, ads for movies, ads for shows, because again, in the streaming world, like you talked about, all they want is to push you to the platform, right? So you're going to see Netflix, HBO Max, movies, all that kind of stuff, because they don't care if you buy their product, or they don't care if you buy a product. They want you to buy their platform, right? So it's a totally different dynamic. The commercial is an ends to a means for those people. Whereas,
how am I going to know if I want Snuggle or Windex or?
I mean, is anybody going to Dunkin' this morning instead of Starbucks or Scooters or wherever just because of Ben Affleck on Sunday?
I agree.
Probably not. Coming up next, we've got our guy, Matt DeMarinis from the White and Blue Review here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
do.
Listen, if,
think,
if it wasn't the reunion show, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm out.
in just to tie it to Creighton, which I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about, but like Stephen Ashworth's official prediction was that Brock Purdy was going to throw a pick to lose the game, and that I think that first play of overtime when that ball got tipped over the middle and just barely
Debo should have caught that though.
He could have. That was a dime. Like that was a great throw.
Yeah, I thought Purdy played well. I thought Shanahan did not coach well. But I don't hang that on Purdy. Like I thought he played really, really, made good plays, made good throws, gave his team a chance to win, which is what you're supposed to do as a quarterback, right? So, yeah, I don't hang that on him. Like there's a couple of weird injuries and some weird play calling that I think let Kansas City kind of stay in the game. And obviously the muff punt was like that just flipped the whole thing. So, yeah.
With that prediction, Stephen Ashworth knows that Brock and Chuba are different people, right?
Like the Mahomes train is weird, man. Like no, you can't mess with him now. Like,
Nope.
You're going against Patty. Like you're just like an enemy of the state at this point because like, yeah, people are. He's got that like fan base now that's like rabid.
And you know the funny thing is for the most part, he's done it the right way for his high profile and as much fawning as we do. He hasn't had a ton of like social media or public missteps. His
family's his only issue. Like the people around him are his only issue.
He somehow doesn't absorb that.
Yeah, it kind of Teflon off him.
It's on the periphery. Like I don't know how he does it, but I'm pretty impressed.
No, for sure. Because like that's the one thing in this, when you grow up in a social media era, I guess like he did, right? Like you figure he's more susceptible to just stepping in it a few times, and he just doesn't. Like he just does his thing, and everyone around him seems to step in it, but it doesn't. Yeah, like you said, it just bounces off of him, Because I just don't think he lets it phase him. There's been a few moments where he's kind of come unglued a little bit, but I think that's just.
But it's all football stuff, right? It's all like sideline stuff.
Yeah, it's competitiveness. Like I don't hold that against someone of that level, of that caliber. You know what I mean? I kind of understand that's baked into it. So, no, I agree. He's going to be the face of the league for a long time. So love him or hate him, it's like the Brady thing. You better just get used to it because you're going to be seeing him around a lot.
Do you think it's does he strike you as like antisocial? Because if he is, that would make a lot of sense.
He doesn't give you a ton behind the mic, so I think there's maybe part of that he doesn't.
Like he's just not out there,
but he just doesn't.
Like he almost reminds me of.
He's got a lot of self-control.
Like you remember, like Doug McDermott at Creighton, where like he just wanted to play basketball. Like that's the only thing that he cared about. He was never like out and about for very much. Like and he really didn't step in it. Like he might have been the most famous person in the city for a couple of years there, and which I get is a different scale, right? But really you didn't hear any weird stories about him like doing stuff in a club or whatever. Like there really was nothing because most of the time he was just in the old gym shooting jumpers. Like that's pretty much all he was ever doing. Like I kind of get that sense from Mahomes that like
he's like Teflon, right, Maddie? It's like we don't care about. We get mad at his wife,
get mad at his brother,
we get mad at his brother, we get mad at his dad. It's all around him, and he gives you nothing that you can hold him.
That's right. I just don't think. I don't know that he does anything besides football.
Yeah, that might be it. I mean, he's got 2 kids, so he might just be like,
He made the dad bod thing like popular. Who else is doing that?
Leo.
I kind of feel like that's who he might be. You know what I mean? He might just be like, I like to play football and I like to hang out with the kids. Like, as young as he is, that might just be who he is. Down to earth.
Yeah.
So I mean, because I don't know enough about him coming up before he burst onto the scene in KC. Like, I don't think he was like a high profile person before that. You know what I mean? So, because he wasn't doing much of like note team wise at Texas Tech, he was kind of just like,
we
thought
he was another one of those system guys.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it's just kind of who he is because that's kind of how he came up,
That's a little bit of a tease to a couple of questions I got for Ravi in our hot seat. Who's Matt DeMarinis' leader right now for player of the year in college basketball?
In college basketball?
Correct.
Oh, Zach Edey. Like that. Is that a debate nowadays? I thought it was over. Is it?
So he's the only person. He's the only guy with negative odds. So he is the clear-cut favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But does Purdue have to get over the hump for you? That's kind of, I think, what's still out there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can see where you're going with that for sure. But I think it's going to be so clear-cut in terms of how much he's a separator, because he doesn't really – he's just impossible to account for. You know what I mean? He is the hardest player to guard on the floor for reasons that he gets clowned for, but also for, like, he's really skilled too. Like, he's not just a big oaf out there, I don't even know if I don't know who else would be in the conversation is my thing. Because there's lots of good players out there and ones that in any other year could vie for it. But
well, I mean, you got like popularity wise, like Filipowski, Connect. I think Darren Holmes is still a little too obscure at Dayton, but like RJ Davis, Hunter Dickinson is a guy going for double doubles. Kansas could make a run.
I've watched Kansas a lot. Does Dickinson really do it for you guys? Like, is that
it does? So Caleb said something like, "We're watching Kansas last night," and he was, and he said something that was kind of odd, but it was in passing, so I didn't pay him any mind, of course, because why would I talk to your own kid? But he goes, "Gosh, it just seems like he's the beneficiary of a lot of what's going on around him, not just about him."
Yo, like that's why I should just come on every time I come on, but.
Doing the truth bombs, like, see ya, just tosses that grenade.
That's exactly what he said.
I swear, I think I've sent you multiple things from Caleb where I'm like, I think this dude is just like spot on. I don't think I would disagree with him at all. Like I'm with him. I don't get it from like I don't think he's a bad player by any stretch or overrated or anything. I don't think he's
just not that guy.
Yeah, I don't think he's on that pedestal. You know what I mean? I think he's just a good 5-man that to cause problems matchup wise, but I don't think he's like on a Edey, Kalkbrenner, or Klingon. I don't have him on that level.
What about Jaden Ledee?
Ooh, yeah, I like him a lot.
He's like the Mountain.
Probably not high profile enough to actually win it.
San Diego State is legit,
right? But like nationally, probably not high profile enough to win it.
No, definitely not high profile enough. But I think yeah, he won't be in the conversation, but I think he's one of the more underrated ones. I think he's better than Dickinson, for example. Like I think.
What about Tristan Newton? That's right in our backyard.
Yeah, Tristan Newton, I think is going to be like he's my front runner right now for Big East Player of the Year. Even though like kind of Devin Carter gets a lot of the hype on social media because he's kind of like a one-man show right now, and I think he belongs in the conversation. But I think Tristan Newton has been the guy from day one all the way through that Like I don't think UConn can win without him playing well, kind of thing.
As versatile as they are, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think he's the linchpin because he's the guy who, on both ends of the floor, is a tone setter. He sets everybody up offensively. He hits big shots. He can rebound, facilitate, score, and then defensively, he can take your best dude and make him miserable. You know what I mean? Like he just gets after him. He flies around. He plays hard. He's just he's a bulldog, and he doesn't look like a bulldog. That's the thing. Like he kind of looks unassuming. But yeah, he's a stud in my opinion. I think really highly of him.
We're talking with Matt DeMarinis from the White and Blue Review. Matty, let's switch gears here and go to Creighton. Obviously, there's been some hand-wringing, some consternation about kind of how the last stretch has gone. Obviously, losing to Butler, losing to Providence. Obviously, those games could have gone either way. Really haven't played poorly against anyone in a while except that UConn game, which I think we all know why they played poorly there, because UConn's a little bit of a juggernaut here. How do you gauge where you think they're at in terms of just their overall play? I know we've seen like Ashworth come on a little bit offensively, but it seems like maybe the defense has slid back. Like, I don't know if I want you to give them a grade, but kind of where are they at in your mind compared to where you would want them to be heading in the middle of February?
I've been getting this question a lot, actually. Like, not just in this realm, but like.
Well, I'm sorry for not being original enough for you, Maddie.
No, it's all good.
Look at little brother's mad at clapping back at big brother. I like it. That's cute.
No, I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying this question makes me laugh a little bit, but you have to understand my point of view on this is I've been like, I don't just cover the men, I cover the women too.
Mm-hmm.
And so like right now, like they're 37-10 we're going to Valentine's Day here, 37-10 between the two of them. So I've seen like a ton of winning, a ton of good performances, a ton of like amazing performances, and then some that just like, are mess, but they either get the job done or they lose close, and you're just like, you're not really sounding an alarm off of it. So I understand that people latch on to a loss and just wonder like how many things on the checklist went wrong. And I don't feel that right now. And I understand 17-7 probably isn't what people, and 8-5 in the Big East probably isn't what people thought of this team because how much experience they had coming back and all that. But I just look around college basketball too, and I'm like, I still think they're one of the best teams in the country. Like I don't think I don't know if there's 5 to 10 that you say, oh yeah, any night, no matter what, Creighton can't beat this team. You know what I mean?
So
I watched the Big 12, and I'm like, I think the best team in the Big 12 right now, whoever you think it is, I won't argue. I think the best team in the Big 12 right now finishes behind Marquette, UConn, and Creighton. If you say home, road, neutral.
So on a neutral site, let me just give you one, and I'm not debating, but I think that's interesting because so on a neutral court, they play tomorrow, BYU and Creighton. You feel comfortable taking Creighton, and BYU's not even, you know what I mean, like what I would consider.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I'm with 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Creighton's really good. I think Creighton's really good, and I think their best is capable of beating you name it.
I watched Houston the other night struggle offensively, and I was like, gosh, that'd be a good matchup for a team like Creighton. And Houston's 21. What's Houston, 21-3?
I've watched Houston struggle offensively for like 4 years.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know.
So
it's worse
right.
now. But
he may be right.
Maddie, that's what I'm saying. Like we all look at it from the Creighton lens. When we see them lose, or we see them not do something at the highest level, or they see them like, you lose at home to Butler, and no one thought that was going to happen before the season started, right? And then you're like, gosh, why?
Butler low-key is not bad though.
No, I know.
Butler's on fire right now. Like
I know they're making shots. Like I did not see that coaching resurgence
from Mata.
Yeah,
like blowing by a guy like Neptune, who some of his peers really liked at the time of the hire.
I agree. I think Ravi's more on the like, hey, let's talk about Neptune wagon. Which
how long have I been talking? I've been talking about this like midway last year.
Yeah. So Ravi was on me about that early. I didn't really feel it, and now I'm like, yeah, he might be on to something.
My question was is Kyle Neptune actually good at this? And I don't know.
Yeah, it's time. Yeah, I think there's enough. Like
the answer is leaning in the no direction, though, right? Like
for sure. But I'm with Damon. Like I didn't think Thad was going to have like. I didn't think he was going to.
I didn't either. I was sitting behind the bench on.
I guarantee Ohio State would take him back. You got Michigan and Ohio State at the bottom of the conference in the Big Ten.
Yep.
I just wonder how. What I was worried about with Mata wasn't that he couldn't coach anymore. I just didn't know if he'd have the energy for it. Because like I'm sitting behind the bench at Butler or against Butler, and like he's physically looks like he's in pain. Like he's limping around. Like he doesn't, like he almost looks like late stage Phil Jackson a little bit, the way he walks around and stuff.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's why I was like, I don't know if this is going to work at Butler. It's not, it wasn't as accurate.
Well, for the record, you don't smoke peyote. It's Phil Jackson.
He doesn't, or I don't.
Matt, let me ask you
You don't
something.
know what I do when I leave here.
Matt, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Of these jobs that are supposed to be like good, the Ohio State thing is just sticking in my craw.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at DePaul. I've heard for years. Oh, man,
Sleeping Giant. They just got to lock down Chicago.
There's
like nobody else is recruiting there.
There's DePaul, there's Georgetown, and there's Ohio State. Remember when Ohio State came calling and it was all the circulation and rumors swirling about Mac, this, that, and the other.
That wasn't rumors. That was
no,
real.
I get it. I
Yeah,
understand. I'm
that
not
was
trying
real.
to put Coach Mac's business out there, but
I mean, it was reported. I'm not putting his business out there.
rank those jobs for me real quick, Matt, in terms of going forward, not who they've been, but relative to where they are, the conference they're playing in. Rank Georgetown, DePaul, and Ohio State for me. You can even factor in expectation levels in terms of taking the job, because I think that actually matters more than people think.
I think it matters a ton.
Yeah, I think I don't feel it with Georgetown. I know that's kind of like the rub is that they're once it's built, everything else will fall in place because of its history, and I don't feel it. They've always been that team that just never draws any fans. At least in the time that I've known them,
and a high
reasonable. Although I don't know
a lot
how
like
high they are
A&M
now.
and Ohio State. I think
feel
their
like
fan
they've
base
always-
expects them to win.
Yeah, I feel like they've always been toxic because even when they had some good teams early on, new era of the Big East, they were always fire this bum. You know what I mean? They just don't. It's never good enough. So I don't think Georgetown is in a place where they.
To be fair, though, JT3 was a bad coach. That wasn't a bad take. By
Remember some of those
Georgetown fans.
halftime
He went to
cut-ins?
Final Fours though, didn't
I
he?
know, but he was a bad coach. He had a ton of talent for a while, but JT3 could never coach.
I don't know about that, man.
I
He had
do.
an adequate
Listen,
system.
come on.
His system of doing things eventually got.
What
it ran into
system?
the
He
pot.
didn't have a system.
No, he did. He ran that Princeton offense that was popular in the
30s,
late 80s, early 90s, all the way through. I mean, yeah, 30s too. But I'm just saying, that.
Just out here running four corners offense like he doesn't have a shot clock.
So it wasn't too
What's
long.
wrong with that though?
All right, but
What's
listen.
wrong with that?
So, who
I
should
think
be
Ohio
good
State
relative to
has
supposed? Did anybody see Michigan? You're in Ann Arbor. It's Michigan, and I feel like Trey Burks wasn't that long ago, right?
About 10
Georgetown
years.
Final Four wasn't that long ago. Sullinger and Mata in that run for Ohio State wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
What?
I mean,
I don't get how this happened.
no, I don't either. But I also think when you're at places like that, you can fix it quick too. Because
Okay.
I think
So that rules
That's-
DePaul out.
that's-
Because I'm not sure it's the same thing there, but they do have the lowest expectation levels.
But I also think if they actually made the right hire for the first time in their history, that it could be something really good. I don't. When I've been to Marquette and I've been to DePaul, and I'm telling you, I don't see a difference in terms of how it feels around the community, the resources they kind of have at their disposals.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Marquette's pulled way ahead now because they've been winning.
Sure.
And
But
the resource
infrastructure-wise,
department, too.
it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, I feel like when you go to DePaul, you're embedded in the city, man. It feels really like a cool vibe. You don't really feel like you're on a college campus. And I know some people like that, it's not an intimate setting. It's kind of just embedded. It's baked into the whole city, so you get the full experience every single second you're there.
I'm not trying to go all hot takey, but I feel like I was hoping you said Ohio State because those basketball expectations feel a lot to me like, let's say, A&M's football expectations. I just think
100%.
it almost feels impossible to be as good as
At
what they
Ohio
feel
State?
like that athletic budget
Justifies.
See,
I think Georgetown's the best of those three jobs.
What?
Oh, really?
I think Georgetown is the best of those three jobs because you have access to talent because of your history and where you're at. There's a ton of talent in that area. There's not a ton, unlike Chicago, there's not as much attention on the DMV. I know people recruit there, don't get me wrong, but there's a ton of talent there. You are kind of the big deal there in terms of basketball. I know Maryland's there, but Maryland hasn't been special. We just heard Kugler talk about their resources and their commitment with NIL and stuff like that and Cooley's salary. And here's what I think matters more than anything, why that's a better job than Ohio State. Ohio State is a football school forever. no matter how good you are, no matter how good that motto was. They could have won a national title with Greg Oden, and they still would have been talking about how they didn't beat Michigan in football that year. Like, that's what Ohio State is. You win at Georgetown, you rule that place. I think Georgetown's a better job.
I agree with you on your point. Here's my problem, and I feel this way too. I'm a little uncomfortable saying it because Caleb's about to walk into it, but like, I feel like sometimes you get to a point where you're too big. You know, you talk about like too big to fail. I think sometimes you get to a point where you're too big to succeed because there's so much angst around, you know, returning to that level.
Like Ryan Day at Ohio State.
There's so much pressure.
Dude wins a ton for people to be mad at him.
Yeah.
You can't even enjoy the process of building it and winning incrementally to get to that stage because every win that you have in that journey is like, yeah, well, you're supposed to beat that team. I don't want to hear about that. You know what I mean?
But I think Georgetown, like Nebraska, has gotten so far down that they would appreciate.
I don't think it changed. I think it's always present because the minute you get to that like doorstep, then people immediately assume you're going to kick it down and never and lock it behind you and never go back again. I think it's hard. I think it's really hard once you've been on top to fall back down and then get back on top. If you haven't been.
Maddie, who has the best middle of the conference? The Big Ten or the Big East?
Real quick here, like 30 seconds.
Big East. I'm not. That's the middle of the Big Ten. I think when you look at middle of the pack, I think Big 12 is at the top.
Yeah.
That's Matt DeMarinis from the White and Blue Review. Matty, we appreciate it. As always, we will catch up with you again soon.
Sorry for rambling, fellas. Thanks for the time.
You're good, Matty. Love it.
All good. That was a fun.
I like the national.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation with him. And we'll be talking to Matty more as we get down to the nuts and bolts here of college basketball season. I do. Hey, listen, I think Georgetown's the best of three jobs. Coming up next, first ever Hurrdat hot seat for my guy DB here. We'll see if we can get him a little uncomfortable with some of our questions on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back. Am I on? I don't
Oh, is he producing or
Shane,
like what's going on?
Oh, you guys, we're back.
Am I on?
Shane, did you miss me?
No,
I can't hear anything, Shane.
You can't. I'm not surprised. I mean, people move stuff around.
Shane,
I'm
I
not.
can't hear anything in my
You
headset.
should be able to hear stuff.
I can hear you now. I can't hear me in my
So
headset.
when we were pulling up the things, I think I moved some of the.
Uh-oh. Okay, there we go. Hey, we're back.
Yeah, there you go.
Listen, it's day 2. We're okay.
So my man B Square Voice reminded me on Twitter. It was Al Campanis we were talking about earlier, and I couldn't remember the name, and I should have known. I'm like Dodger exec, but I mean that was in the prime of me being impressionable too, because I was in. I remember I was.
So you were a kid, yeah.
I was in middle school,
yeah.
Right, and the Dodgers were on a heck of a run, and I'd never heard an interviewer tell somebody. I think he used the word baloney.
He
I
said
think he said
baloney
baloney
and garbage.
Yeah,
He goes, you don't
yeah,
really
that's a
believe
bunch
that
of
garbage,
baloney.
do you?
And he said, "Well, I mean, why do you think black people aren't good swimmers? I don't think they have the buoyancy." And I was like, "I was just at Maple Village Pool. I love to swim."
You're like, I float real good.
I went over to my buddy Cobb's, Brian, because he had a pool in our neighborhood. I was like, "Brian, am I a good swimmer? Is that why you beat me in basketball in the pool? It's not because you're 6 foot and I'm 5'3", but
I beat you in basketball on land. You beat me in basketball in the pool.
oh, he was so good.
happened?
And we get in the pool, and I felt like I was going to drown trying to play.
If you don't know what we're talking about, you're going to have to listen back to the show. I don't even remember what segment we were talking about. But Al Campanis was a flagrant.
We were talking about would something disqualify you from the Hall
the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame.
I don't even know why you guys even went down that road.
To make you uncomfortable, Shane. That's what we were doing.
I think we said it's such and such a Hall of. Would that discount you from being a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, and then you brought up,
and I said, "Well, there are guys that aren't good guys that are in the Hall of Fame."
Yeah, and then that's how we got on Al Campanis. whatever. I'm alive. I like in-game betting.
Do you?
Yeah, I think you get better lines sometimes. You get better value.
Yeah, you and Brian Edwards.
I think you get a little juice there sometimes.
He's
or if
that's his jam.
Or if you don't know how the vibe of a game is going to go, you can learn a lot in that first 4 minutes or so, especially basketball. Man, I enjoy a nice live bet. You can do that at Horseman's Park in Omaha or the casino at Warhorse Sportsbook in Lincoln. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. It's time for her.
My man, Al Campanis would have been upset. My man, Kobe Bretz, was a great swimmer. Thank you, Larry.
It's time. It's time for Hurrdat hot seat. The seat already feels a little hot, if I'm being honest.
But I can swim.
What, are you sitting on a seat warmer too?
No, I just got a little cushion here, which is nice. Helps to be comfortable while we're doing the show here.
A little more cushion for the pushing.
But we are. I'm just gonna ride on by that.
Pushing you around, or vice versa.
It's time.
You tried to bully DeMarinis.
Who, me?
Yes.
About what?
You tried to strong arm him with some of your hot takes.
About what?
Well, the best job.
I think Georgetown is the best job out of those 3 that you gave. I think Georgetown is the best job. I firmly believe. I
think they still have a lot of things in common.
If what Kugler says is true, because the only thing I didn't know about, or that I haven't known personally about Georgetown, is okay, what's their NIL setup? What's the money setup? What's the resources? And I'm basing this off what Kugler told us, that like the money's there for Cooley, the money's there for NIL. Like if that part is there, Georgetown is the best of those three jobs.
I wonder how close he was, because in my circles, the rumor is that Coach Murphy was going with Cooley to Georgetown
instead of going to Bama.
Yeah, but he had to wait till June 1. But you can obviously talk about that deal before
right.
It had to happen.
Yeah,
but then Preston.
I mean, either is a good spot for him. I think. I mean,
can you imagine Murphy at Georgetown?
If Cooley could get the guys that Preston can get, then Georgetown is real scary.
Yeah, because I get the sense that Coach Mack thinks very, very highly of how well-rounded Preston is.
Yeah,
as a recruiter, a coach, a drill guy.
I have nothing but good things to say about Preston Murphy.
Yeah,
I didn't interact with him a ton, but we did. We interacted some.
Well, I was in enough gyms, man. That guy was a kid.
He's a grinder.
Magnet.
He's a grinder. Like that dude works incredibly hard. Was always super kind to me. Like when I was covering Creighton exclusively, like nothing bad to say about him.
But real quick before we get to the hot seat, because one of the questions is similar, is setting up one of my hot seat questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the sense that Ohio State basketball is a little like A&M football?
No, because I genuinely don't think Ohio State fans care about basketball in the same manner that Texas A&M fans care about football. Like it is not, to me, it's not on the same level.
I could see that being a point. I don't know if that's a disqualifier.
I think it is. I think because
like how is Ohio State not better in baseball? Did you see the preseason rankings? Like how are they not better in baseball and basketball?
Right. So I think I get what you're saying on the Texas A&M comparison. Be like, hey, with all these resources, why aren't you better? But I think the actual job is different because the expectations of Texas A&M football, I think, are way larger than the expectations of Ohio State basketball. I think the expectations of Ohio State football and Texas A&M football are a lot closer, but Ohio State has justification for those expectations, and Texas A&M
national championship
doesn't really, because they haven't won a real national title. I think ever, if I've looked, the ones they claim, there's like one in the 30s and one in the teens. Anything before the AP era, I do not count. So like if you're trying to claim 1920s national titles on me, like you can go. I'm not here for that. Texas A&M does not have a real national title in football. Ohio State is one of the most accomplished programs that we have. So expectations wise, I think they're similar, but Ohio State's are justified. I don't think Texas A&M football expectations and Ohio State basketball expectations are anywhere in the same neighborhood. So I think that's a huge difference to me. But if you're asking the question of why aren't they better considering their resources, then yes, I'm on the same page as you.
Okay.
You want to go first? You want me to go first? You got one?
I got one.
Let's go.
With regards to National Player of the Year,
I've got a different guy.
I give you the Big Ten Conference or the field.
Who I think will win, or
what would you today, if you had to be right for national
I have to be right
for National Player of the Year, the Big Ten Conference.
So who are we talking about besides Edie there?
That's for you to figure out.
So just Edie. Okay.
Well, I don't unless you think
you bet a big Tyson Walker guy or
Terrence Shannon Jr.
Sure. Although his off the court stuff is probably a disqualifier.
Maybe
for voters. I'm not,
maybe, but he's back playing.
I know.
And from all reports, not that I'm a.
No, I know. I know what you're saying.
I'm not sure what the wrong. Nothing was substantiated.
It's perception, not reality, right? Though the perception of what happened there, it's like 99.
Do you feel somebody could get hot in the Big Ten Conference? The field is the field, though. Edie is the only. Edie is the only guy right now with favorable odds. Everybody else is plus money.
If I have to be right, I'm going Big Ten. If I am going on who I think should win it, I'm taking the field.
Who do you like?
I like Dalton Knecht. The story matters to me, right? Yeah. His story is better than anybody's.
So,
he's performing.
He could make a serious run.
He could. I just don't know that Tennessee has a high enough profile nationally.
They're top 10 in the country.
No, but like standing and profile are different. Like, I don't know that people pay enough attention to them nationally as a basketball program.
Now they probably have a run in them.
Probably. And so, like, maybe the SEC tournament run or late straight, because all that voting happens before NCAA tournament, right? So you probably just get a conference tournament run. He kind of had a run earlier in this year where he scored 35 points or 30 points in like 4 straight games or something. I don't remember what the actual numbers were, but he had like his little mini moment there. He probably needed to extend that a little longer. But what are you taking, Big Ten or the field?
I'm going to take the field.
Is there who's the name? Is it RJ Davis?
No, I like Davis. Connect is there. McCullers Jr. could make a run. I think it's safer to take the field. Like, what if UConn all of a sudden just goes on
and you get Tristan Newton?
Newton's a dude.
If it's anybody, I want it to be Connect, but I want it to be him, right? Yeah. Go JUCO, go Northern Colorado, then you end up in a power conference and you're balling.
You're carrying your team.
Like, I like that. Coming up next, we got more Hurrdat Hot Seat here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back as we wrap up the show here on Hurrdat in Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Those YouTube comments popping off as always. Ooh, Ken has an interesting one. He says maybe Texas A&M football equals Illinois basketball. That's interesting.
It is a little. When did those guys beat Carolina? Was that 05, 06?
They lost to Carolina in 05 in the title game. That was the Sean May, Raymond Felton.
I'm thinking they beat them too.
Well, not in the title.
No, I know. En route. Was it D. Brown's years?
That was D. Brown, Darren Williams,
Okay.
Luther Head. That's all the same team for Illinois.
Yeah. What am I thinking? I'm trying to think of their most recent run.
Illinois?
Yeah. Are you saying that with an S?
I was saying Illinois apostrophe S,
S.
like the possessing of Illinois. I wasn't saying like Des Moines or anything.
I know you get it. I was getting ready to go in, and I was like, ooh, I forgot he's going to bristle. No, that's not what I said. I understand how the word is pronounced. You okay, DB? Hey, man,
It was a possessive term.
I understand. Stay away from you, academia.
I think Illinois might be close in terms of how I view Texas A&M. In terms of Illinois basketball might be the closest corollary there.
And
because they haven't gotten over that hump, but they've had like runs.
And have we established what sport that school is?
Illinois?
Yeah.
I think they're a basketball school that wants to be a football school. That's what I think. They're the opposite of Kansas, which is or not the opposite of Kansas, but it's like they're a basketball school that really wants to be a basketball school. And they're like, oh, we'll finally, I guess, put a little bit of money into football so Coach Leipold doesn't leave. Or a lot of money. They're doing a whole renovation. It's like $500 million. Like they're putting real money.
Yeah,
into
they're
it.
like
They're putting real money into it.
Yeah, it's not from the ground up. They're just getting a facelift, which is what I think most schools will do from here on out.
Yeah,
you won't see those big erection projects.
Are too much. But I mean that I'll keep thinking on that. But I think that's in the neighborhood of what I'm talking about with Texas A&M.
Drunk Monk's taking the field.
Yeah, he likes Newton. He likes Newton from which I could see. I could see Newton and UConn.
I was a little surprised that Matt was so matter of fact. And I get he's the front runner. Yeah. Vegas, I mean, he's clear. He's the only guy with
dramatic front runner.
Yeah. But I don't believe that to be
I think he is the front runner. I don't think it's as wide as the odds would indicate.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. Especially like
the problem with UConn is it feels more collaborative. I think. Like I get Newton,
which again it was interesting. But I was kind of vibing with Matt though on the linchpin.
Sure. No, he's definitely like, go Reggie Jackson on you, like the straw that stirs the drink. But there's a lot of other pieces that people like on that team, whether it's Castle or Klingon or whatever, right?
I'm telling you though, Connect has the ability to he has the type of game
you want to talk
that
about,
could take the nation by storm.
Yes. He's like exciting.
Yeah.
The way he plays it, like Edey doesn't play exciting basketball.
No, I know.
He plays very good basketball, but it is boring as all hell.
And I thought people. So the two things that I think could hurt Edey is I think people will say he gets the he should do that.
Yeah, he's
so people
7'12".
So
of
people
course he
will
should
be
do that.
dismissive of the actual 23 and what is he 23 and 13,
something like that. Yeah.
And I think they want Purdue to get to where they need to be.
Which for him,
for their postseason,
the
run.
voting isn't going to happen.
It's close. It's within a month.
No, but I mean, so you're not going to know if Purdue overcame the NCAA hurdle until after you voted. So to your point, I think last year actually hurts Edey because of what they did in the NCAA tournament, where they're like, yeah, he dominates in the regular season, and you're not going to get to see the end of that sentence this year before you vote.
Yeah, Jaden Ledee. If you really watch college basketball, I think you could more than make the case.
Here's the problem, though. Most voters don't.
I don't know. I could see if in baseball.
The Heisman is the biggest culprit here. A lot of those guys don't watch very many games outside of their region, right? That's the problem. A lot of people are so hyper focused on their coverage.
I think basketball player of the year gets a bad rap. I think
they get it right more often than not.
I do too.
But I also think it's more obvious more often than not than it is this year. Edey's the obvious choice this year, but should he be? That's a fair question.
TK, give it to the goggles kid out of Indiana State. Can we say that? I just read it.
Goggles?
There's nothing wrong with
he's got goggles. Yeah, that's not
he's nice though.
Wearing goggles is not a protected class by the ADA. You're all right.
I think you could say Indiana State.
What do you know about the ADA?
Type 1 diabetes covered, baby.
Wow.
American Disabilities Act.
You got some range.
Let's do it.
So I have to know about the ADA just because of my background and my profession.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I know. No, listen, when I got diagnosed, my mom was all up in that stuff, as an advocate, because if you don't do it for your kids, nobody else will.
Yeah.
Right. And so she made sure I was covered and protected. So I know all about the ADA since I was about 7 years old.
We're really going to take the Big Ten Conference, not the field?
If I have to be right, the Big Ten is the safe bet.
You only get one guy though.
Yeah. The guy that is the odds on favorite.
Okay.
And it's not by a little bit. It's not like it's plus 300, plus 700, right? He's minus 700. The next guy's plus 1,500.
Yeah.
It's a big gap. If it's who I think should win, I'm taking the field. If I have to be right, I'm taking Big Ten.
Fair enough.
That's all. Listen, I'm a risk analyst. That's what I do. I'm weighing my odds here. What's the cost benefit? I'm gonna actually finally ask a question here, and I'll stick with basketball.
Okay.
We're talking about college basketball this morning, and this is right in your wheelhouse. I'm watching Wake Forest and Duke last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our guy Hunter Salas out there doing his thing.
Oklahoma Tyler went.
Did he?
Yeah.
Hunter, that's awesome. I know they're tight.
Hunter got him tickets, so
that's awesome.
He took Trey out there.
Shout out to our guy Oklahoma Tyler. I spent a lot of time with him on sidelines this year.
Friggin' human meathead.
Man after my own heart.
The Dana White of Omaha.
He does kind of look like him,
doesn't he?
I could see him slap fighting somebody too.
Nah, he was so cool. He was gonna go to Bellevue West because Mike had a tournament.
Yeah.
To go get Micah and bring him to Westside, so I didn't have to miss the beginning of senior night.
Oh, that's cool.
But then Micah's game got moved. But he was all in.
He's a good dude. He comes off like a jerk.
I know.
He's a good dude.
Misunderstood.
Hey, he's like me. No, I actually am a jerk for people that don't know. But I'm watching Wake Forest and Duke last night.
Yeah.
And we're watching our guy Hunter Salas ball out a little bit against Duke, Cameron Indoor.
Yeah. Coming off dropping 30 the other day.
And I can't help but think to myself, and I don't even know if this was a real possibility because I don't really think it was.
Mm-hmm.
What would this Creighton team look like if they had Hunter Salas?
Boy, they need an athletic wing.
I'll say he fixes their biggest problem.
And he can defend.
He fixes their biggest problem, right? And I don't know if you still have Ashworth or not. I don't know. But if you bring Ashworth off the bench, that becomes really interesting because you've got some help off the bench now. All of a sudden, you got to solve some of your little depth problems.
He'd be fantastic.
If Hunter Salas was on Creighton, it's gonna sound like hyperbole, but I don't think it is. Are they the best team in the country?
Probably not.
How close are they? Legit top 5?
Probably they're the preseason buzz.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're at the preseason buzz. Right.
Yeah.
I could see that being a thing because he's an elite level defender.
Yeah. Got the size, got the length, can get to the rim in a way that no one really on Creighton can right now.
Yeah.
Can also, he can score at 3 levels.
Remember when Gonzaga used to think he could only defend?
Yeah, that was really dumb. The way his 2 years at Gonzaga were some of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
But I will say this. I will say this because I'm not. Few can coach.
No, he can for sure.
And so,
but he messed up on that.
You know what I think we undersell?
What's that?
The freedom to make mistakes.
I don't undersell, but I know what you mean.
When you empower people to go out and not have to look over your,
not playing scared.
You can do amazing things.
Yeah,
amazing things.
Absolutely. And I think
the
freedom that Hunter has
with
at Wake Forest.
Right. So I don't know if should I assume that linear latitude with Mac?
I think so.
Okay.
Because
that's 50% of it.
Well, and you have to earn it with Mac, right?
Yeah.
But we've seen that whether it's Ashworth, Shireman, Alexander,
could you envision
Mitch
a scenario
Ballack,
where Shireman and Hunter play together though?
Yeah, they play different games.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you'd get more of last year's Shireman.
Now, Hunt does play with a guy that hunts shots for Wake.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But he doesn't dribble near as much.
Well, last year, neither did Baylor. I think you get last year's version of Baylor, which is a lesser version of Baylor. But I think you get a greater version of what you're getting from that other guard spot.
Yeah, and I know sometimes Baylor drives some Jays fans crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But statistically, what he's been able to
really,
accomplish,
really good.
He's
really, really good.
You talk about giving latitude. I think
that's what I mean. If you earn it with Mac,
yeah, you got to give him some latitude to do his thing.
If you earn it, if you earn that trust with Mac, you earn that latitude with Mac, then you've got it. Like you never saw. Whether you go Raggi, you want to go all the way back to Raggi, you want to go Mitch Ballack, you want to go Baylor Shireman. Like if you have earned his trust, you get as much latitude with Mac as you do with anybody, I think. Because some of those shots, he doesn't like.
Yeah, and he doesn't. I feel better when he's doing it than let's say Casey. And I don't think it has anything to do with their size. I just think it has more to do with my level of comfort in a positive result. He's way more consistent.
Yes. Well, I think Casey also kind of forces those things sometimes. Whereas Baylor, it feels much more natural. I don't know if it is or not, but that's just my sense.
When is shooting from 30 feet off the bounce natural?
Hey, ask Jacob Padilla when I'm playing pickleball with him back in the day. He knows it's natural. That's the show for today. We will be back tomorrow. That's DB. I'm Ravi.
Get JP
Lulla.
over here.
This is Hurrdat Sports Radio.